Hi, welcome to the Arlington County Board meeting. We're so glad you've joined us. Before the meeting gets started, here are a couple of things you can expect. The Arlington County Board meets monthly with the exception of August. Meetings are typically held in 2 sessions, Saturday regular meeting and a Tuesday recess meeting. These meetings are where the board makes decisions, hears updates, and receives public input on community issues. Today's regular board meeting includes 3 parts: public comment, consent agenda, and regular agenda. Public comment is for new business. These are items that are not already on the agenda, items that have not already been heard, and items that do not already have a future scheduled hearing. Public comment begins at 9:30 a.m. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes with 1 speaker per topic. Opposing viewpoints are considered separate topics. Following public comment is the consent agenda. These are non-controversial items voted on as a group, such as board minutes, grant applications, use permits, or advertising future hearings. There is no public hearing for these items. If you'd like to speak on a consent agenda item, please notify County Board staff as soon as possible. They will be located outside the boardroom and are happy to assist you. Hi guys. Some items may be removed at the request of a resident, while others require board approval. Removed items are scheduled for the Tuesday's recess board meeting. Regular agenda includes staff presentations, public hearings, and a full discussion from the county board before a vote. If you are signed up to speak, please note your speaking category. Individuals may speak for 2 or 3 minutes, and representatives of civic organizations may speak for 2, 3 minutes, or 5 minutes. Remain seated until your name is called. The clerk will call the current and next speaker. When called, come to the podium and use the button on the right to adjust the height. You can also adjust the microphone. A timer will be visible on the podium. Please stay within your allotted time so that everyone has an equal opportunity to be heard. For virtual speakers, keep your camera and microphone off until your name is called. When acknowledged, turn on your camera and unmute. Your timer will appear in the Teams meeting and will begin once you are recognized. If you need a reasonable accommodation, please speak to county staff outside the boardroom or the clerk at the dais. If you have any questions, staff are happy to assist you. Thank you for being here and sharing your voice with the county board. Have a great meeting.
Good morning. Welcome to the June 13th, 2026 Arlington County Board meeting. Trust that folks, most of whom have already seen our video introducing the procedures for our meeting. I'll only add that what I've added before and most have heard, but perhaps not all. If you agree with one of the speakers, we ask that you either use the sign language sign for applause or you stand up. Standing up I find particularly powerful. All colleagues are here. For the 2 or 3 who might not know, just you have the name tags, so hopefully you know all of the members of the board who are here. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment, per our custom over the last year, to highlight resources for our federal workers and immigrants. It's come to my attention that not everyone has known that these resources are here. Just reiterating, if you or someone you know is in need of resources as a federal worker or an immigrant or immigrant family or communities that you know need this, please go to this page. I believe Deputy Clerk, Mr. Davis, has copies of this one-pager if you want to just take it with you for ease. You can visit those county websites and very much hope you will share those resources as needed and appropriate. With that, we'll begin with public comment. Mr. Clerk, call the first 2 speakers.
Certainly, our first in-person speaker today is Brendan Dresner, followed by Audrey Clement.
Mr. Dresner.
The red button in the middle.
And then
Red is go.
red is go, and then there's on the right, you can lift the podium.
No, on the microphone.
On the microphone.
Yes.
She's helped. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
You want to test it?
Test. Okay.
There you go.
All right. I'm here to speak about our county's relationship with VIAB, the Virginia Israel Advisory Board. Our Economic Development Board, AED, makes decisions according to what VIAB wants, going out of their way to invite Israeli weapons companies to Arlington. I used to be against this, actually I used to be, but I've recently come around to your way of thinking that economic development should always come first. We should keep working with VIAB to get some more weapons companies here, because when I see a genocide happening, my first thought is, how can we make money from this? May I be of service in your quest for ethnic cleansing? Can I get you some ammo? Do you need office space, data centers, or some new laptops? Is your gun jammed with blood? Can I clean that out for you? This is really gonna stain my fingers. All right, let me know if I can get you anything. If you want a coffee or a foot rub, I'll do both, then I'll do your laundry for you. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic. AED's relationship with VIAB, this servitude relationship, is shameful considering what's happening. But when we ask you to cut ties with VIAB, you say your hands are tied, and you're right, your hands are tied. They are tied to a knife. And this knife is pressed against the throat. The knife is pressed against the throat, and every day the knife moves across the throat like a saw, and blood bursts into the air and onto the knife and onto our hand, and our hands are covered in this blood. Our bloody hands are tied to this bloody knife, and AED is reaching out to VIAB, trying to tie our hands even further. Is this really acceptable to you? It doesn't matter that Israel has killed thousands upon thousands of men, women, and children. How many Palestinians have to die before we cut ties with VIAB? It's an irrelevant question. It's irrelevant because we will never cut ties with VIAB, because we love integrating our community with genocide. Virginia is for lovers of genocide. And it doesn't have to be this way. Please, please work with us to divest. We will be in the hall now and after the meeting. For anyone that wants to learn more, we have flyers. We would love to tell you more about our campaign. We've been working on this for a while. Please take a stand with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dresner. Next speaker.
Our next
Welcome,
speaker is Audrey Clement, followed by Sarah Dijkstra.
Dr. Clement.
Welcome, members of the board. I'm Audrey Clement, independent candidate for County Board. At the May 16th, 2026 Arlington County Board meeting, Jay Hamilton, an opponent of Missing Middle, also known as EHO Housing, urged the board to read its latest report, The Reality of EHO in Arlington County. He also urged board members to participate in a tour organized by Neighbors for Neighborhoods, quote, so you can see how EHO is actually fitting into the neighborhoods. Evidently irked by Mr. Hamilton's remarks, Takis Karantonis rebuked him, saying, quote, market rate affordable housing, 80% of that stock was lost and there was nobody here from Neighbors for Neighborhoods, et cetera, to actually point that out. They weren't here in 2005. They were not here in 2015 when the Affordable Housing Master Plan was approved. Takis stands to be corrected. First, I myself spoke out against the AHMP before this board in 2015, arguing that, quote, no elected official in his or her right mind would increase real estate taxes to build CAFs, end of quote. My 2015 prediction was actually wrong, since the latest CIP proposes to pay for more affordable housing through bonds whose, quote, debt service would have to be funded most likely through a tax increase, end of quote. Also wrong is the assumption that subsidized housing is more affordable than market rate. According to a newly released ProPublica report entitled A Low-Income Housing Program is Pouring Billions into Housing Many People Can't Afford. Finally, it's wrong for Takis to assume that EHO will produce more affordable housing. According to the Neighbors for Neighborhoods report, EHO is not affordable to moderate income households, but only to very high income households. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Clement. Next speaker.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sarah Dijkstra, followed by Dixie Duncan.
Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Dijkstra. I'm the mother of a 20-month-old with a rare genetic condition that causes global development delays. A lot of the world isn't built with kids like my daughter in mind, but Arlington has invested in programs that put children like her at the center, and I want to tell you what that looks like today. My daughter was referred to the Parent Infant Education Program at 3 months old. For the past 17 months, PI has been a constant in our lives. Amanda Kelly, our provider, has taught us exercises to help her build strength. She's helped us figure out how to adapt our home to meet Louisa's needs. And both Amanda and our coordinator, Angelina Solomon, have celebrated alongside us when my daughter has gained new skills. I want to recognize both of these women who have shown up for our family with expertise, consistency, and genuine care. As my daughter has grown, we've moved through the child find process with Arlington Public Schools, where she was evaluated and placed in a special education preschool program this fall. When we walked into our assessment and IEP meetings, the staff had already researched my daughter's incredibly rare condition and studied the evaluations from our providers. Every individual we worked with, and there were so many, came prepared with a plan that anticipated her needs. I'm so excited for her to start at Ashland in the fall. Beyond these services, the county is invested in programming that makes everyday childhood accessible. Storytime at the library, which my daughter goes to twice a week, adaptive swim, and adaptive gymnastics. Programs like these are how my daughter and other children with disabilities get to participate in the community. I'm incredibly grateful, and I want to ensure that you're aware of the fantastic work being done by PI, APS, and the public library. These programs gave me the support when I didn't know what to do and people who understood my daughter's needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dykstra. For all speakers, we will respond once all of the public comment has been spoken. I think the next speaker.
Yes, thank you. Next speaker is Dixie Duncan, followed by Bill Richardson.
Ms. Duncan.
Good morning, everyone. Since the last time I was here, we had another student get run over on June 2nd on South Carlin Springs Road. I gave you a little package. You probably haven't had this since you were in school, but I gave it to you so you could have quick reference because this is an immediate emergency. I am asking you to set up a multi-agency committee to start studying this road so that we can have proposals by mid-August because we do not want any more accidents on South Carlin Springs Road. There's a lot of data in all this, and you guys are mostly informed of this, but if you'll turn to the second, it's number 2. If you'll look at the bottom, the hidden crisis is the unreported incidences. When I was at several things that I've been going to in the last 2 months, I've met students that have not reported the accidents. So this is an urgency that we cannot look beyond. I really need your help in setting up a committee to study this and to get something done by mid-August. I've given you the statistics from Vision Zero. I gave you a letter from Peter Rousselet, who pointed this out in 2020. I gave you information. I gave you solutions in addition to being here to complain about this road. So I just want to make sure that you realize that we have to come up with some solutions, and they need to be in effect by mid-August so that we can get these kids safe. I've also talked to the chief, and we did not get police presence on the road. And everyone knows when school's getting out, children are a little more rambunctious. We need police on that road for the next 4 days. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan.
Our next speaker is Bill Richardson, followed by Sarah Nichols.
Mr. Richardson.
Mr. Chair and board members, for several years, a number of civic associations from diverse neighborhoods have been urging you to conduct a comprehensive study of the generous lot coverage, height, and setbacks provisions limits for single-family homes. I'm here on the same issue, but on behalf of the Arlington County Civic Federation. CivFed includes over 80 civic organizations and many more neighborhoods. This week, CivFed adopted 42-0 the resolution before you urging such a study. One member abstained. The problem we see is that in 2025, the board abandoned its 2023 commitment to a lot coverage study. Instead, it directed staff not even to study whether gigantic tear-down projects have become too large or too tall. In fact, you now ask to study whether to replace lot coverage limits with what amounts to another stormwater management tool. The issue here is not whether to permit more multifamily homes. It is whether to permit replacing smaller, more affordable single-family homes with far larger multi-million-dollar single-family homes. As your late colleague Eric Gutshaw put it 6 years ago, with new home rebuilds, quote, Arlington needs to initiate the modernization of our zoning ordinance with a frank discussion of just what character do we want in our neighborhoods. Your truncated study permits builders to continue increasing the size of these teardowns at the expense of other impervious surfaces. Yet staff has told you what is changing is the size of the house. So why are we not looking directly addressing that footprint? Some have said, let's grab the low-hanging fruit, but years later, the damage will be done. We will have clear-cut more stands of mature trees, created more heat islands and other climate challenges, taken more affordable homes out of circulation, and disrupted more neighborhoods with oversized redevelopments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Next speaker.
Our next speaker is Sarah Nichols, followed by Lee Clark. And I do understand Ms. Nichols may not be able to join us today.
Ms. Nichols, we can come back if we need to. Next speaker.
Our next speaker then is Lee Clark, followed by Armand Ciccarelli.
Mr. Clark.
Good morning. My name is Lee Clark. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Glen Carlin Civic Association about VHC's South Arlington campus on Carlin Springs Road. Most of our neighbors understand the critical need for and support the behavioral health services and beds in Arlington. I ask you to engage early and often in the site plan review and approval process to help us ensure that this new facility integrates well with the adjoining neighborhoods, 3 APS schools, and our historic, natural, and recreational resources. Carlin Springs Road is a traffic and safety nightmare. Improvements are being made, but just last week, another student was hit by a car. Please move us forward on pedestrian safety by rejecting the second driveway that VHC has proposed. It crosses a sidewalk used by Kenmore, Campbell, and Carlin Springs students and their families twice a day and invites left-hand turns on a congested artery without any pedestrian or traffic signals. It is not a safe design. VHC will build on the south half of the site. Use of the land that the county retains has not been determined. Please do not allow any construction or staging on the north parcel until plans for the future use are presented and vetted with the community. It does not make sense to build a 10-foot wide path across the resource protection area and create a connection to the neighborhood without first determining how the county will use their land. The plans present a loading dock, dumpsters, and generator to Carlin Springs Road, while the expansive glass facade faces our neighborhood. Please require VHC to reorient the building to face Carlin Springs Road and minimize light trespass into nearby homes and parkland. The building and paved surfaces cover 80% of the site. This is inappropriate adjacent to a natural area. Please eliminate 90 surface parking spaces in the south leg of the driveway to reduce the excessive impervious surfaces and save our sledding hill. Finally, we need you to encourage a robust dialogue with the community on this project. Participation was great during the online engagement. Sadly, public comments were severely limited during the first SPRC.
Thank you.
Please make
Mr.
sure
Clark.
that this not happen in the next SR.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank
Going
you. And
back-
our next and final speaker, I do not see Ms. Nichols online or in the room. So our next speaker is Armand Ciccarelli.
Mr. Ciccarelli.
Good morning. I hope to never have had to come back here to talk about this again, and hopefully this will be the last time, events being what they are. So, good morning. I'm here on behalf of the Columbia Heights Civic Association regarding a petition to expand the operating hours of the Walter Reed pickleball courts. For anybody who's unfamiliar, that doesn't include you folks, it's important to remember that the current operating hours were not chosen arbitrarily. They were a product of a lengthy, challenging process that involved county staff, elected officials, pickleball advocates, and neighborhood representatives. During the process, serious concerns were raised about locating dedicated pickleball courts so close to homes. In response, the county assured residents that limitation would be placed on court operations, including operating hours aligned with those of the community center. Those commitments were fundamental to achieving a compromise that residents could live with. The community accepted a facility it had significant concerns about because it relied on the county's assurances that those restrictions would remain in place. Now, only a short time after the courts have reopened, efforts are being made to undo that compromise. This issue is more than about operating hours. It's about whether commitments made during a public process can be relied upon. If assurances used to secure community acceptance can be revisited whenever a user group seeks additional access, residents have reason to question future commitments as well. Before closing, I'd also like to note that Installation of the acoustic fence is not a silver bullet. It hasn't eliminated all of the noise. For example, although it may reduce overall sound levels somewhat, it does not eliminate the distinctive repetitive noise of pickleball play, the pop that everybody talks about, that can occur several thousand times per hour, especially when the courts are full. Neighborhood residents continue to experience that noise despite the barriers. In closing, the current operating hours reflect a carefully negotiated balance between recreation and neighborhood quality of life. As such, I respectfully ask the county to reject this petition and reaffirm that commitments made during the siting process will continue to be honored. Thank you for your time and consideration. I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Ciccarelli. Next speaker, or Cicarelli, I don't know how you choose to pronounce it.
At this point, unless Ms. Nichols is joining us, I do not see her here or online. There are no further speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I will provide comments and then open it for colleagues should you wish to add. Mr. Dresner, thank you for coming in and sharing your deeply felt, clear concerns. We continue to be working through some of the requests that you've made with the broader group has made with respect to ethics policy and a code of conduct. We're not done with that process, but we continue to work that through. With respect to VIAB, hear your concerns. I've been educated somewhat more by your group over time. I've also engaged and listened to other constituents with different points of view. I merely would suggest that it's important that you share the truths that you have and point to the locus, really, in my view, being the ethics policy and code of conduct for the board, as well as setting direction through that as our best way forward. Dr. Clement, thank you for coming in. We took the tour that Mr. Hamilton advised. Some of us in hot weather and some of us yesterday in steaming weather. Thank you to Vice Chair Coffey and Ms. Cunningham. I think you guys got the hottest day of all of us. We certainly continue to listen and understand that there are strongly felt views in our community regarding expanded housing options. Ms. Dykstra, thank you for coming in. I'm tangentially aware of PI, but not. I have two young kids, but I'm not walking the road you're on. I think all of us are keenly aware and rooting you on along that road. And it's also the case that our vision statement says every person is important. And it feels like the work that you've described is part of making that vision a real thing. And so I'm confident that colleagues will probably touch also in responding to you, but thank you very much. We don't always hear the good things, and we also just reiterating how we are rooting you along and trying to be community supports for you and your child. Ms. Duncan, thank you for coming in. The student that was hit most recently was a day before Glen Carlin days, so we were all pretty aware. There were some signs up when I went that morning. There have been emails with our police department about this. We also have had, Ms. Coffey and I have tried to bring together neighbors, as I think you know. You mentioned two things that I kind of want to focus the most on. First, it is understandable the urgency here. It's also the case we face a difficult challenge. We're almost at a point, I'm still trying to learn the full context for the most recent. I understand the student's parents, the young person's parents, refused further treatment to go to the hospital. Not to say that it's not serious, but we're glad that the child is okay. And then you focused on the next 5 days, and certainly my experience, it's been 25 years since I was a teacher, but the last 5 days were indeed a time when students were rambunctious, as you know, also having been a teacher. I guess I would just say the next 5 days, that's a fair question we need to work on. the mid-August timeframe is helpful. I don't know what this format takes, but there is an urgency to this work. We have made progress. As you know, we've secured easements on both sides. Mr. Manager, is there anything that I'm missing that you would add on this one?
Ms. Duncan and I had a conversation a couple of nights ago, and she's had conversations with the chief of police, and we'll see what we can do about additional staffing for the next few days. I can't make any promises on that. As to the other issues, I think that you and Ms. Coffey especially know as much as I do about what's going on with the analysis there.
Great, thank you. I will also, we'll take back, overpromising and under-delivering is the worst, and so I'm not going to overpromise, but we'll take back the 5 days, and we'll also take back the mid-August deadline. The name of a committee is less critical than the results that we work on, and so we will work on that. There is, in addition, the safety audit, which we discussed when we were out there. The timing of that safety audit can be further organized, perhaps, by what you mentioned in mid-August. And I think everybody, perhaps the non-parents, may not be currently quite as focused. Mid-August is the time when school starts to come back, and that's why I think you chose that. Mr. Richardson, thank you for coming in and sharing your concerns and long, thorough advocacy. I simultaneously respect the, concerns you mentioned. I hope you won't mind that I mention that I think about your diligence fulfilling your family's interest that you spend more time with the county board, but I also will take seriously your comments in the following context, which is impervious surfaces are part of the goal. There are heat island effects that could also be considered, and then affordability of housing is another. We have not changed our setbacks. I think your argument in part is that our setbacks should be shifted to be smaller so that we're having less large houses. And that is a policy issue worthy of consideration. We are making progress on that. I think other colleagues will mention it. We'll touch on this. I don't know that there's anything, Mr. Manager, that you'd add that I haven't, and there doesn't have to be. All right. But there could. Mr. Clark, on South Carlin Springs, the specific items in your email and then your comments today follow up on are worthy of some sustained work. Many of them seem to me appropriate for our process. Simultaneously, our planning processes don't always get to all concerns raised, but they do get to many. And the ones that are not addressed, often our neighbors and our community have the most frustration if they're not addressed, which is reasonable. But I think that the process is worth working on. I did relook at your concerns this morning in your email. I do think, as you know, the property has been zoned for a healthcare facility for some time. There's a difference between zoning for a healthcare facility and current use for a healthcare facility, I acknowledge. But also, I think that there's a shared commitment to the work that we will do with respect to mental health, as well as other healthcare needs related to addiction, perhaps. But I don't know, Mr. Manager, we did email a little bit on this. Is there anything that I have missed, again, that you wish to add, and there doesn't have to be?
First of all, thanks, Mr. Clark, for coming in, and we've had conversations. I would encourage people, we are in the middle of the site plan review process. There's been, I think, one meeting of the SPRC. I know there's going to be at least one, if not two more, where a lot of the issues that he discussed have been taken under advisement by the applicant. We've asked them to go back to work on a number of those issues. So there will be multiple times for input at that part of the process, and then also later on when it comes formally before the Planning Commission and also before the board. And so leave it at that for the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. The last speaker, Mr. Cicerelli, it's good to see you and have had the conversation, I believe, on Thursday night. with you. Both my recollection of the process was of coming together and compromise on pickleball courts at Walter Reed was for some time a bridge beyond which we thought we would get to. And so the spirit of that, I'm aligned with your comments. There's sort of two thoughts, what the process was and balancing all of the interests, which I'm aligned with the sentiment that you share. And then there's the timing of the petition, which even if I weren't aligned with what your sentiments, it just feels vastly premature to me, even so. So that's what I will share. I think colleagues may also share thoughts on that. I guess I'll conclude there, see if other folks have other comments. I would only just add as an addendum that seems appropriate to Mr. Richardson, your comments. I know how assiduously you've worked on this. I know we are not in agreement on this, and I want to be respectful lest my earlier comments were in any ways not fully addressing the strength of your views on this. I do think we should move forward. I'm not in the space quite that I think some of your advocacy has focused. Colleagues, over to you, should you have comments. Ms. Cunningham.
Just very briefly on Carlin Springs, really want to thank the number of advocates who are here, who were Open Door Monday on Monday, who shared with many of us at Glen Carlin Day, and really every week for the last many years, the concerns and the strategies and the potential solutions. Mr. Manager, I would love it if you would just give a little bit of an arc of everything we have been doing in the last 5 years on Carlin Springs and what lies ahead, because I know it's easy as a community member to see that there's not much visible happening, but my understanding is there's been a great deal of work from Richmond on down to the front lines. Could you just give us a little
I'll start,
selection?
and I think that board members may want to add. First off, the more recent activity we've taken is to lower the speed limit along South Carlin Springs Road, and I think much to the surprise of some people, we have used some speed cameras along there to try to enhance people's awareness of those speed limits, and I think that's been relatively effective. We have tried tactical steps to model reducing in one direction down to one lane. We took a look at that, reviewing the results of that. Also, and I did want to note that we have a study coming up, and we've expedited the timing of that study, perhaps not quickly enough. And we also, I did want to note that the development patterns along South Carlin Springs Road 15 years ago, if you were driving down that road, there was actually an active hospital there. And we are taking that in which the models show that the new facility coming will have less traffic than that, but that's something that we need to stress test. And there's also been concern about the soccer games there. There's an effort right now with the Arlington Soccer Association to improve the quality of the fields, but not the number of the fields. So that is something that's been ongoing. So we're paying a lot of attention to that. We've added additional enforcement resources, and I think at the end of the day, there's more to be done, but that's just a sampling of some of the things that we've done.
Great, and I think we saw some good activity last week. First of all, the sidewalk project is moving along speedily, which is wonderful. It's been a long time coming because we need to work with residents to make sure they're comfortable with giving us easements, but we've achieved that. Could you take as an action item to check in with the chief about visible safety patrols and speed patrols for this week? I thought that was underway last week. I know I've seen the signs, and I know the intention was to have more patrols there. We had our graduation last night for a group of 18 new police officers, which is fantabulous news. 20 more are coming in the next couple of weeks. But this is a hot spot, and certainly with this last week of school and a summer starting.
Yes, and I know Ms. Duncan raised that to me on Thursday night. I had a conversation on Friday, and we'll see what shows up on Monday. It's related to staffing, so I'm not going to make any promises, but we're very much aware of it.
Okay, great. And then just very briefly on the residential study, study and the lot coverage question. I think all of you up here and all of you out there, many of you know that this has been a primary focus for me and Mr. Chair. I think we had robust conversations in 2022 and 2023 about my perception of the need to do this before some of the other zoning changes. So I am thrilled that we are on track to have the low residential study initial results for community conversation or initial recommendations. And Mr. Manager, if you can remind us of the timing of that, because I think that will give us at least 80% of
It's my intention to come back with a summary of where we are in July and then to start upsetting a lot of people from that point forward.
Exactly, yeah. So it's always a difficult conversation when we're talking about change and talking about changed property rights, but I think we've made enormous progress in part due to the significant advocacy from CivFed and Mr. Richardson and others to first admit we have a problem. And I think that that's really important. And I think the manager's done an exceptional job across all of the departments to bring us there, to bring data to the table. And now we get to argue about it. So look forward to the fall. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Next speaker, Mr. Karantonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To echo Ms. Cunningham's and our chairs, welcome to everybody who continues even in such a hot day today to come here and care about and demonstrate the care that you bring for our civic affairs, all sorts of civic affairs. I want to start with Dr. Clement, since he mentioned me personally. Well, I had the opportunity to run in elections against Dr. Clement a couple of times, and more of them, and we had this argument again and again. And she lost the argument again and again. And I believe that she's going to lose it again, the argument. Affordability in Arlington is not just the fact that something happened, something changed, our economy or the market has changed, and we are struggling to find ways to recreate the affordability in our market. The prices are just too high. The rents are absolutely stratospheric. The problem is also that we as a community, as a government, if you want, we missed several opportunities in the past to fix something that we were seeing sliding away. That the very fact that in the beginning of the 2000s, we've lost 80% of our market rate affordable rental units. And a good part of also of our ownership units, let's see how the condo market has performed through this time, is a glaring example of how important this issue is and how much of a decisive changing, provoking, and promoting policy we need to instigate. Just crying foul that we've lost the affordability and the HOs don't produce affordable units for 30 or 40% AMI for the lowest third of income is just not enough. What I don't hear from Dr. Clement, I've never heard that before, is what is the solution? What is a viable, realistic solution that is in touch with realities with Arlingtonians who right now cannot afford housing or are housing burdened in terms that are absolutely unmitigated. Ms. Dijkstra, thank you so much for coming here. I always take a little bit of exception when I see here that we are talking about people with disabilities. You are absolutely right. We are talking about people with special needs and special abilities, and we need to approach that from this point of view. Happy to engage further with you if you want to look what best we can do to help your daughter and yourself. Ms. Duncan, thank you so much for the little expose. I would go back to, and when I visited with your neighborhood a couple of weeks ago, we went back memory lane in 2021 when we had a pilot to reduce South Collins Springs to 3. And there were a pile of reasons why this didn't go forward. I continue to say, on record, that I think that the discontinuation of that pilot was a mistake. There are reasons for me to say that what is the biggest problem there, it's not not primarily the speed of vehicles, it's the volume of vehicles and the reasons why this is a major arterial, which connects Route 7 with Route 50. And this collective behavior of drivers, in my opinion, or at least we should aspire to be able to change that and take away the pressure from a street that we need for other reasons, to serve all 3 schools, and yes, to serve a hospital as well, that we can design better. I agree with that. Finally, Mr. Richardson, I look forward to the first results of the study that is ongoing right now. I think they are, like we have seen till today, they are very enlightening and bringing us forward towards the goal of really thinking progressively about the footprint of our buildings and new builds. And Mr. Cicciarelli, thank you for coming here. I think that we have a modus operandi right now. It's, in my opinion, relatively early to revisit that, since the neighborhood and pickleball players have been in agreement on how to manage this use in Walter Reed. And I do believe that we have to give it enough time to see how this works. And this is just too early to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carantonis. Mr. Spain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to everyone. And I'll be brief because not to repeat a lot of what my colleagues have already stated. We'll start first with A4P. Thank you, as always, for coming in and providing your perspective and advocacy. As our chair mentioned, advocacy on many levels. I really appreciate that, and I think I would remind you to stay vigilant and also not just look here to the board, but also look to our state delegation as you continue to have your levels of advocacy and concerns related to your cause. Second, to Sarah, thank you for coming in and talking about your experience. I think a lot goes, kudos, and not to repeat, but to Anita Freeman and Deborah Warren and Michelle Cowan, a lot of folks on our team who are overlooking DHS. It's great to hear to what our chair said, the good news story. As the liaison, however, to the Disability Advisory Commission, I would love to have a conversation with you, sidebar. So feel free to reach out in any way that we can help you and the team and your family and your endeavors. So thank you for showing up today. To Ms. Duncan, of course, your advocacy is unparalleled. Thank you. We were all out at Glen Carlin, as you heard last week, and I know our chair and vice chair are laser focused on that. I have offered my assistance should it need be, but we have 2 liaisons, and I know we're hyper focused on what's going on there in South Carolina Springs, but not just South Carolina Springs. We had an issue down in Shirlington last week, and there's just a lot going on in our community that we need to be mindful of as it relates to pedestrian safety, bike safety, to ensure that as we become more dense and more folks are flocking here, that we are having these safe communities. I can appreciate what the county manager said, because that facility many years ago that used to be a hospital, I remember when I first came to Arlington, I used to frequent there a lot with my young kids. So I understand the traffic pattern a little bit, but also what's happening in Dixie, right, with the fields and potential out there. We're going to have an increase, and we're going to try to do our best to mitigate any problems that may exist. Next, I would say to pickleball, right? That's a stone throw from my neighborhood. I've watched this since I've come on the board. We have 25 outdoor courts in Arlington, 18 indoor courts. And we just opened a state-of-the-art 6-court facility at Walter Reed, which is phenomenal. And we did some, we took care of the basketball courts as well. I think I will kind of be not as far as my colleague, Mr. Carantonis. I think it's not about giving this opportunity to kind of come back and reevaluate. I just don't want to put the cart before we say the horse, right? I think we're just opening this up. We have a vibrant pickleball community all across Arlington, and I want to stay committed to what the agreement was, the compromise was, when we work with the community. I also think, Mr. Manager and colleagues, we may want to, at least for me, I want to understand a little bit more about monitoring the noise after the fact to see if there's been any change, but I think all is going to be fine. in the short term. And lastly, Mr. Chair and colleagues, I know this is perhaps not our bailiwick, but I can't help because I had a couple of interns the past couple weeks. But this morning at 9 o'clock, both Washington, Liberty, and Yorktown and Wakefield are having graduations. So we have a host of students who are graduating today, and I just want to wish them and all the students in Arlington who have graduated in recent days and weeks the very best as they move on to bigger and better things in our world and our community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Vice Chair Coffey.
Thank you. I'll try and stay focused. And Ms. Dijkstra, I actually had the opportunity to participate kind of unusually in the APS Early Childhood Work Group as the representative from the county board, or from the county actually. And I will say that APS's early childhood programs for those with special needs have to be among some of the best in the country. And in addition to all of the programs and staff that you are learning about and getting access to now, I really encourage you to engage with the parent community there too, because there are so many people who have gone through this before you, who have a lot of takeaways and a lot of information. And one of the things that I most took away from the APS work group was how integral that parent network is for so many in the early childhood space there. And so I really look forward to staying in touch with you, because I think we are doing great work. We can do more, and especially as APS thinks through how they provide their early childhood programs, I want to make sure that we continue to have that high level of service for everyone in our community. So thanks for coming out. And then the only other thing I'll touch on that I think hasn't gotten quite the attention it deserves is Mr. Schwartz's hypothetical proposal for using capital bonds for affordable housing, because I think one of the things that Dr. Clement said was that she never expected anyone to use tax revenue to pay for committed affordable housing. And I think that is just kind of fundamentally at odds with how I think about what our responsibility to housing is as a community. We have a decade of our affordable housing master plan. We put forward our affordable housing investment fund with only $10 million of ongoing committed each year when construction costs are going up and up and up, and we are not able to fund the number of projects that we know are needed in our community. And while the outlines of Mr. Schwartz's proposal is still pretty blurry, the idea of bringing together philanthropy and public dollars in order to put in truly $500 million into affordable housing, that's what it's going to take to actually meet our needs in this community. And we can spend another 10 years talking about it, and we can keep barely hitting the housing goals that we set for ourselves. But we all have, I think, had many conversations about we have to do more in this community. That means we all have to pay into the system. We get out what we pay into. And so I'm really ready to engage on this topic. I really think, Mr. Schwartz, I'm not aware of any other county or locality in the country that has proposed such a level of investment, and particularly with the public-private partnership model of it. So I applaud the creativity, the details. We have the next couple of years before the next CIP to work out exactly what that looks like. But I think thinking outside the box, we can keep doing all the same things that we've already been doing, and we're going to get the same results. And so I think it is time to have this bigger conversation about how we really put our money where our mouth is and invest in committed affordable housing.
Thank you, Vice Chair Coffey and colleagues. I'll close. Ms. Cunningham reminded, for most all Arlingtonians, power is on, but for 71 different separate addresses Dominion shared, we engaged with Dominion to help. It is not on, and in the wake of that has meant for difficult days the last day and a half for for those residents. And so just want to make sure that if you have concerns or questions, is there a particular place on the website, Mr. Schwartz, that you would suggest folks go? If there's heat concerns, of course, if it's an emergency, 911, but.
As to the status of the power updates, I think Dominion has a really excellent website on that. And you personally have been in communication with them, so I'm sure you'll get the updates as to I think it was the remaining 20 sites or customers.
Thank you, appreciate it. Then the last thing I would say, without seeking to be overly in any way, is just Thank you again to you, Ms. Dykstra. All of us have shared, but you have advocacy responsibilities, but also being a parent is plenty. And so we are rooting for you. I think everybody in the room would be rooting for you with what you're leading to give opportunities to your child. So thanks very much. With that, everybody in the room who came for public comment, you're welcome to stay, but you do not have to. I will not be offended. We will not be offended, as I've said sort of ridiculously once. We have been walked out on many, many times, and now is such a time that you may choose to walk out. Thank you for coming this morning and engaging with your government. We will now turn to our consent agenda. Mr. Kushner, have any items been pulled from our consent agenda?
Yes, one item has been pulled. Item number 2 related to the Arva Motel at 2201 Arlington Boulevard.
Thank you. I move that the county board adopt the county manager's recommendations for all items on the consent agenda with the exception of pulled item number 2. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Carantonis. Colleagues, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The motion passes 5-0. We will hold a public hearing on item number 2 as well as one other listed agenda item during the recessed meeting, the evening segment of our recessed board meeting on Tuesday, May 19th, on Wednesday, June
17th.
June 17th. Sorry about that, folks. Wednesday, June 17th at 6:30. If you want to speak on one or more of the items pulled from today's consent agenda, you can register on the county board's website starting today or call our office 703-228-3130 on Monday. The board just voted to approve the consent agenda. It includes minor site plan amendments, use permit requests, ordinance amendments, requests to advertise, and a lot more. These items were put on the consent agenda because they were considered non-controversial, but that does not mean that they are not important. So I'll take just a couple of minutes to highlight several items very briefly. Item number 8, in response to legislation, and we can go to the next slide, we approved amendments to Arlington County Code's chapter in Virginia law that allows the board to directly supervise and work with the independent policing auditor. This is a bill that was, by our prior governor, was the first veto, and we are very grateful that we have the opportunity to move forward with this. It will help us as we stand up this critical function for our community. The next item I'll mention is related to electric vehicle supply information, supply equipment, making EV charging easier to install. The changes include allowing parking spaces on public and private lots reserved exclusively for EV charging to count toward the minimum amount of required parking for permitted use. It's important. Allowing the equipment to be located within required yard setbacks and facilitating the installation of the equipment in constrained parking areas. These support our community energy plan, which was adopted in 2019, with our goal of getting to carbon neutrality by 2050. Next, solid waste rate. The board set the household solid waste rate in the consent agenda at $439.27. That's an increase of 5.7% compared to fiscal year 2026. That will take effect, I believe, starting July 1st. This is a cost recovery piece of work that we do, and we have, there's been plenty of efforts to make sure that we are efficiently providing solid waste collection. That is a critical function that we are committed to. More to come over time on that. Over the coming, when I say over time, over the coming month or 2 months on that. And perhaps actually even next week, I believe there may be an update on this and part of this work. So very important, we've set that rate. Next page, Regional Innovation Fund. We accepted $150,000 in Regional Innovation Fund grants from the Virginia Innovative Partnership Corporation. This has already helped us as we brought in additional jobs through this type of initiative already. Next slide, item 22, grant agreements in support of the transportation resources for Arlington County. We have an infrastructure here that has been quite successful. We have an annual lunch, but there's also other work that seeks to promote, educate, promote, and provide technical assistance designed to reduce reliance on single occupancy vehicles. It will also advance our goals and our efforts to expand multimodal transportation options, including transit, bicycling, walking, and carpooling as indicated. Next slide. We have accepted funding for Housing Choice Vouchers, a critical program for many communities and Arlington, and we accepted and appropriated $316,000 in state assistance. These will, as indicated, we'll be serving those with developmental disabilities, a critical piece of the affordable housing work that we need to provide. Next slide. We've taken significant steps on loan documents associated with the rehabilitation of a part of the Barcroft Apartments. Those following along closely know that we have taken multiple steps over the past year in this critical effort to preserve and rehabilitate the Barcroft Apartments. So the sum total of the loan for these particular rehabilitations is listed, and it's a loan between Arlington County and Jair Lynch Real Estate Partners, and we will continue this work. Thank you. That's the consent agenda. Yes, Mr. Schwartz.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to remind you of something that you reminded me of yesterday, which is that in the adoption of the household solid waste rate, if you look, we will be reducing the level of that rate for the first quarter by $30 to acknowledge the fact that there has been, I'll just put it this way, suboptimal service received by county residents. And so people should keep that in mind when they get their bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schwartz, for mentioning that. It was in my mind, but it's also didn't want to share it before we were all concluded with that. For those listening at home, and in particular, those sharing the news of this morning's meeting, I think that is a very notable step that we'll be taking. There will be significant cost, but it is appropriate given the service that we should be providing. So that concludes the remarks on the consent agenda. We'll turn to the regular agenda item. And Mr. Clerk, if you'll call the first item.
Certainly. Item number 35 is a request to authorize advertisement of a public hearing no sooner than the July County Board meeting to consider adoption of an ordinance effective July 18th, 2029 to amend, reenact, and recodify Chapter 15, which is noise control, sections 15.3 and 15.6 of the Arlington County Code to prohibit the operation of gasoline-powered leaf blowers and gasoline-powered leaf vacuums at any time.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We'll now turn to the manager for the staff presentation.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And assuming that Jennifer Fioretti and Shariar Amiri appear, they will be making the presentation. If not, you'll have to hear from me as we walk through material that has been prepared. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Fioretti, who will walk us through a number of slides. Thank you.
Ms. Fioretti, when you're ready.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Jennifer Fioretti, and I am the Assistant County Manager for Climate Policy. I am joined by my colleague Shariar Amiri. He is the Chief Building Official for Community Planning, Housing, and Development. And I'm going to share my screen.
You may want to move the mic over a little bit so it's just a little closer. There you go.
Someone accused you of being close.
Okay. Thank you again for your time this morning. I'm here today to present on item 35, request to authorize advertisement of a public hearing to amend, reenact, and recodify Chapter 15, Sections 15-3 and 15-6 of the Arlington County Code to prohibit the operation of gas-powered leaf blowers and gas-powered leaf vacuums. Back in February 2026, the county manager committed to bring forward a request to advertise to prohibit gas-powered leaf blowers with a 3-year phase-out no later than spring 2026. In this request to advertise, the manager is recommending to make 3 key changes to Chapter 15 of our noise control ordinance. First, definitions. Under Section 15-3, we are recommending that the county board consider adding distinct legal definitions for gas-powered leaf blower and gas-powered leaf vacuum. This covers handheld, backpack, and walk-behind equipment powered by an internal combustion engine. Second, prohibition. Under Section 15-6, it would become unlawful to operate or permit the operation of either of any of these at any time. Third, the effective date. The ordinance would take effect on July 18, 2029, following a 36-month phase-out. That window gives residents and businesses time to transition to electric alternatives should they choose to do so. For context, our current code already restricts motorized leaf blowers at night in R or residential zoning districts. That's 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. on weekdays and 9 p.m. to 10 a.m. on weekends and holidays. So this proposal builds on rules already in place, extending them to address the noise, but also has the benefit of addressing health and environmental impacts of gas-powered leaf blowers year-round. So why are we proposing to prohibit gas-powered leaf blowers? First and foremost, noise pollution. Gas blowers emit noise that can disturb people and wildlife. In some cases, backpack gas leaf blowers can reach over 106 decibels. What sets them apart from electric leaf blowers is that they also produce a low-frequency sound that travels farther and penetrates walls more easily than other noise, so it affects far more than just the property being serviced. Second, public health. Documented effects include hearing risks, annoyance, stress-related responses, sleep disturbances, and cardiovascular impacts, and those risks reach operators, nearby workers, and the broader community. Third, air pollution and emissions. The small 2-stroke engines commonly used in this equipment release outsized amounts of pollutants for their size. They are significant sources of volatile organic compounds and other critical air pollutants. And fourth, spills. Handling gasoline for this equipment can lead to spills that contaminate soil and water. Taken together, these impacts on noise, health, and the environment form the foundation for the proposal. So how did we get here? First, public interest. Interest in prohibiting gas-powered leaf blowers has grown steadily in Arlington, the DMV, and across the country. Many residents have shared that excessive noise generated by gas-powered leaf blowers significantly impacts their quality of life. Beyond noise, however, we've also heard concerns about the environmental impacts of this equipment, including its effect on air quality, wildlife, soil, and waterways. Additionally, some have highlighted the health and safety risks, particularly for operators who are exposed to harmful pollutants emitted by the 2-stroke engines. Pollutants that I've already mentioned are linked to cardiovascular disease and also cognitive impairment and respiratory issues. Second, the county led by example through its own operations. From 2022 through 2025, we transitioned our entire inventory of non-emergency handheld landscaping equipment, which included gas-powered leaf blowers, from gas to electric in support of our goals. That experience gave us firsthand knowledge of how electric equipment performs in real working conditions. And third, recent board direction. In September 2025, the board directed staff to evaluate options for a potential year-round prohibition of gas-powered leaf blowers. In response, staff coordinated across several departments, my office, the Climate Policy Office, Parks and Recreation, Environmental Services, Community Planning, Housing Development Department, to scan industry best practices, gather public input, and recommend a potential pathway. In February 2026, staff returned to update the board on these findings and committed to come back with a request to advertise an amendment to the noise control ordinance with a 3-year phase-out. Public feedback was a very important consideration in our evaluation of the potential prohibition of gas-powered leaf blowers. We ran a 5-week engagement period from September 24 to October 29, 2025. And reached a total of 3,934 participants. That total includes a little over 3,700 online responses through our feedback form and 208 in-person participants across 6 pop-up events designed to reach residents who were less likely to engage online. We used a multi-channel outreach strategy. First, our digital strategy included online feedback form, a virtual open house, an informational webinar, and email outreach. We also created one-pagers with key information, which were shared widely through social media and the county's Inside Arlington newsletter. These efforts allowed us to connect with residents and provide accessible ways to share their thoughts. Second, we conducted in-person outreach to engage directly with the community. This included a public demonstration of electric leaf blowers, pop-up events in high-traffic areas, which I already mentioned, and discussions at commission meetings. These events provided opportunities for hands-on interaction and real-time feedback. And finally, we prioritized targeting business outreach by directly engaging with registered Arlington garden and lawn companies. This allowed us to better understand the perspectives and concerns of businesses that would be impacted by the potential prohibition and explore ways to support their transition. Here's a deeper dive into the online engagement that we conducted. So after 5 weeks, the online feedback form that we posted received comments from across the county, with the highest engagement from zip codes 22207 and 22205. Most participants, 84%, reported that they lived in single-family detached homes, and 93% stated that they were homeowners. A total of 96 business owners and managers, representing 3% of the total feedback form participants, provided comments in the feedback form. Of those, about 25% of the total business respondents reported being associated with lawn care, gardening, or related industry. Of 18 of those respondents reported having a business registered in Arlington County. Participants, both online and in person, were asked to indicate their level of comfort with the concept of prohibiting year-round use of gas-powered leaf blowers. Of the total participants, a little under 75% noted that they were either comfortable or very comfortable with the concept, while about a quarter were either uncomfortable or very uncomfortable. Of the 19 participants that indicated that they were affiliated with lawn care businesses, 68% said they were very uncomfortable, while 32% noted they were very comfortable. What we took away from the feedback was that that most participants supported the prohibition, though business owners and lawn care professionals expressed significant discomfort. Key themes from the open-ended responses included noise reduction, environmental and health impacts, economic effects on businesses, the lack of performance of electric alternatives, and government overreach. In speaking with other localities that had already prohibited the operation of gas-powered leaf blowers, we learned that many provided a phase-out period ranging from 1 to 3 years to give residents and businesses time to transition. Some cited that the smaller businesses in particular could be greatly impacted by no or short transition times, as some of these small businesses work on tight margins and may not be able to afford the upfront costs of the electric equipment. Based on our research, we wanted to ask similar input from participants about the preferred length for a phase-out period if the county chose to prohibit gas-powered leaf blowers. As you can see here, opinions varied widely with no clear consensus, with the highest support being for an 18-month phase-out, followed by 36 months at 16%. Lawn care businesses were notably divided, with many opposing the policy outright and therefore did not support the phase-out, while a fraction advocated for a 36-month phase-out. Additional comments fell generally into 3 categories: support for a phase-out of some kind, opposition to a phase-out because the industry isn't ready, or because other localities have already done it and we should be able to do it too quickly, and opposition to the phase-out because they believed that it was government overreach, that businesses can transition in their own time, economic impact, and poor performance. 3 commissions submitted letters to the county board on the proposed amendment and possible phase-out period: Climate Change, Energy and Environmental Commission, Forestry and Natural Resource Commission, Park and Recreation Commission. All 3 commissions expressed general support for the proposed prohibition, and all 3 are recommending an 18-month transition period before the amendment takes effect. While preparing our recommendation, we considered a variety of inputs, including the county's current enforcement workflow process. As described in this slide, code enforcement is primarily complaint-driven, and all complaints require verification of a violation prior to an enforcement action. At current staffing levels and workloads, the process for intake to an actual on-site inspection by an inspector can take approximately 24 to 72 hours, at which time the violator, in this case, more likely would have left the location. Localities that we benchmarked against also shared similar processes and remarked that enforcement was a significant challenge because of the speed at which they had to respond. To address this, many localities opted for strong education programs which sought to enhance understanding and awareness of the requirements to improve compliance. Now let me walk you through how we are proposing to implement this policy we've designed as our focus was to be equitable and fair. First, timing. As proposed, enforcement would begin on July 18th, 2029, the proposed effective date. That gives everyone a full 36-month phase-out before enforcement starts. The lead unit would be Community Planning, Housing and Development Inspection Services Division within Code Enforcement. Next, accountability. The following parties would be held responsible: contractors using prohibited equipment, property owners who hire contractors that violate the ordinance while servicing their property, and property owners who use the equipment themselves. The ordinance would apply to all private property. In practice, investigations would be primarily complaint-based, which I had already referenced. However, our overall goal is to prioritize voluntary compliance through education and notice, not penalties. The process follows 3 steps. First, we investigate and validate, verifying the complaint through inspection. Second, we notice and educate, issuing a notice of violation and helping the responsible party understand the rules. And third, and only if there's continued noncompliance, we escalate to civil infractions as a court summons as last resort. I referenced earlier the importance of education. After speaking with communities that have implemented a similar ordinance, they all emphasize the importance of regular communication and education. Montgomery County, for example, has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars educating over the time that they've implemented, but even prior to and once their ordinance became into effect. To that end, if adopted, staff will launch a multi-channel communication and education campaign leading up to and following the effective date of the ordinance. Finally, we are recommending returning to the County Board within 1 year of adoption to provide a program update and discuss tools to support the community transition. For example, we may consider implementing a recognition program for businesses that make the transition prior to the effective date, and/or potentially taking advantage of a new law that was passed by the General Assembly this year, HB 557, that permits localities to tax electric-powered landscape equipment at a different rate than other tangible personal property like boats, aircrafts, research equipment, et cetera. And that this would be specifically for businesses. That brings us back to our recommendation. Based on our research, discussions with staff, and public input, staff recommend that the board adopt the resolution in Attachment A to authorize advertisement of a public hearing no sooner than July 2026 County Board meeting as shown on screen. That hearing would consider adoption of an ordinance effective July 18th, 2029 to amend, reenact, and recodify Chapter 15 of our noise control ordinance. Specifically, it would update Sections 15-3, definitions, and Sections 15-6, prohibited acts, to prohibit the operation of gas-powered leaf blowers and gas-powered leaf vacuums at any time. This recommendation reflects the documented concerns we've discussed today, the noise, public health, and environmental impacts of this equipment. It also incorporates what we heard from the community, our research, balancing broad public support for the prohibition with the concerns raised by local businesses. The 36-month phase-out is central to that, and that balance, giving residents and businesses time that they need for a practical, equitable transition to electric alternatives. We believe this is a well-balanced approach that advances Arlington goals that support a quality of life, public health, and environmental quality. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fioretti. We'll now turn to our public speakers. The clerk will call 2 speakers at a time to help us keep things moving. Please come to the front and be ready to speak when your name is called. Mr. Kushner, please call our first 2 speakers.
Certainly, our first speaker on this item is Mr. Peter Harnick, followed by Margaret McKelvey.
Mr. Harnick.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Peter Harnick with Quiet Clean Maywood, our largest committee in the whole Maywood political establishment because of the concern about these leaf blowers. Jennifer, your presentation was spectacular. I thought that was really terrific, really excellent job. Really impressed with it. We agree with everything you said except for the 3-month 3-year period. We think 18 months would be much more beneficial for everybody, that we can move that quickly. And we appreciate the board's action on this. It's a little embarrassing that we're behind Alexandria and Montgomery County and even Washington, D.C. on this, but we want to catch up as quickly as we can and get this scourge out of our neighborhoods and out of our problems. A colleague of mine, Natasha Atkins, who lives in Aurora Highlands, has laryngitis. She was going to speak, but she asked me if I could just read her a couple of words here. Natasha Atkins said, "I'm here to thank the county board for proposing a phase out of gas-powered leaf blowers, but also to express my dismay at the 3-year phase-out period. Arlington prides itself on being first in everything, but we're already very late out of the gate, and many of Arlington's landscapers, big and small, have already transitioned to electric equipment in the neighboring jurisdictions. It's also been over 5 years since Quiet Clean Northern Virginia first raised this issue with board members, and I urge the board to move with more alacrity and reduce the phase-out period to 12 to 18 months. Thank you very much for the time and for all the work that you've put into this."
Thank you, Mr. Harnick. Next speaker
is Margaret McKelvey, followed by Mr. James Klein.
Ms. McKelvey.
Morning. I'm Margaret McKelvey, a 45-year resident of Arlington and member of Quiet Clean Northern Virginia as well. I've written and or spoken to most of you, I think, numerous times over the last 5 to 6 years on this about the dangers of the gas-powered leaf blowers. So QC Nova really appreciates the work that the county staff has done on this issue. And we welcome the agreement of our partner groups, Eco Action, Sierra Club, Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, who all agree that the transition period, the grace period, should be only 1 year, or some say to 18 months. That would cover this fall's cleanup, and it would also cover next spring's as well. No one can credibly claim at this point that they are unaware of the dire consequences on health of gas-powered leaves, especially the often voiceless workers who are subject to the toxins, ear-splitting noise, nerve damage, even in some cases, decreased fertility. As with smoking inside, I think we will look back someday and say, how did we ever allow Arlington children to breathe this foul air for so long? Foul air, excuse me. This is a break the glass moment on the climate, and you all are already spending millions of dollars to help endangered homeowners. An hour's use of a gas-powered leaf blower creates as much pollution as driving 14 hours from here to Miami. I don't see why you would not seize this low-hanging fruit. Some lawn care businesses have fed you some lazy myths about the use of electric. They are every bit as powerful, and they are available wide range of price points. Last fall's engagement effort showed that a clear majority did not want 3 years. Please listen to them. As for me, I'm almost 75.
Thank you.
Statistically, I could well be dead in 3 years. Please don't make me wait.
Thank you, Ms. McKelvey. On that somber note.
Our next speaker is Mr. James Klein, followed by James Lomonaco.
Mr. Klein.
Yes, hello, everybody. I've changed a little bit of what I wrote
Want to pull just pull the mic down a little bit towards you? It'll come down.
Okay. I've changed a little bit of what I was going to say. I think that the big thing that people who use gas-powered leaf blowers is that the electrics aren't going to be as effective as blowing grass off of the parking surfaces and bike paths. But the point that I want to make here is that we need to get out of the mindset that every walking path and parking lot needs to be cleaned of grass clippings, period. Somehow, in the past 10 or 20 or 30 years, we've gotten used to the fact that people will cut the grass and then everything has to be blown clean. With the exception of maybe 50 feet from the entrance of a building or house, we really can just leave the grass leaves there. We've got to get out of that mindset. And I think that will help people to adopt the electric leaf blowers much more.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Our next speaker.
Yes, our next speaker is James Lomonaco, followed by Ms. Natasha Atkins, who I understand will not be with us.
Good morning. My name is James Lomonaco. I'm a second-generation landscaper. My father started our family business in 1979, and for nearly 50 years, we've been serving Arlington County. Because of that history, I've seen the community evolve, and I understand why residents are frustrated. No one wants excessive noise outside their home, and we don't want to make life difficult for anyone. We simply want to do our job, serve our customers, and go home. Quality of life matters for all of us, and I don't dismiss those concerns. But I would ask the board to be honest about what problem we're trying to solve and call this what it is. The concerns we've heard from residents are overwhelmingly about noise and disruption. This is fundamentally a quality of life issue that has been framed as an environmental one. If this is truly about environmental impact, then why are gas-powered leaf blowers being singled out while mowers, trimmers, chainsaws, generators, and other gas-powered equipment remain unaffected? But if the primary concern is noise, then shouldn't we address noise through reasonable standards that apply fairly and consistently? As written, this mandate unfairly targets one industry rather than addressing the broader issue. And for businesses like mine, this isn't as simple as buying a different tool. It means replacing fleets of equipment, investing in supporting infrastructure, changing how crews operate in the field, and absorbing significant costs. For our company alone, that transition would cost over $159,000 in equipment, and that doesn't include ongoing labor burden. Based on our current operations, battery-powered blowers would make each job take an estimated 20 to 25% longer. That adds roughly $39,000 in additional labor costs every year. And those costs don't disappear. They're ultimately passed down to Arlington residents through higher prices for the services they depend on at a time when the cost of living is already high. I also question how this ordinance will be enforced. And a regulation that cannot be enforced consistently creates confusion and frustration without delivering results. I'm not asking you to do nothing. If the county is determined to move forward, I ask that you do so thoughtfully and work with businesses that will be affected. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lamonaco.
And
Next
understanding
speaker.
that Ms. Atkins is not joining us today, we'll move on to Mr. Aldo Sirotica.
Thank you. Good morning. I wanted to speak in support of the proposed ban on gasoline-powered leaf blowers. I also support a shorter phase-out period. I believe 1 year should be sufficient. As other speakers have pointed out, other jurisdictions are doing it, and I believe that landscaping companies should be prepared to do this, to comply with a similar ordinance in Arlington. As others have pointed out, this equipment is bad for people and bad for the environment, and it's also a massive quality of life issue. What's at stake is nothing less than the right to have to peacefully enjoy one's own home. Again, I would strongly urge the board to pass a ban or to propose a ban with a phase-out period no longer than 1 year. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Sirtek. Next speaker.
Our next speaker is Michael Lowe, followed by Ms. Leslie Loudon.
Hello, board. Nice to see you. My name is Michael Lowe. I am a Lion Village resident and board member of Eco Action Arlington. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to the environment, to quality of life, to fairness. We don't take for granted that we have a board who shares our values. I strongly support the gas-powered leaf blower ban. And I want to recognize the Arlingtonians who have lonely but persistent advocates for this for years. For all the reasons I support it, I urge you to phase them out more quickly. 3 years is a long time to endure the pollution, the noise, the health impacts. We have survived as a species for millennia without gas-powered leaf blowers. I'm quite confident that we can survive in their absence. I want to make 2 quick points. We believe that Arlington should be leaders in the climate, in quality of life, in demonstrating that a sustainable community is both possible and preferable to the alternatives. And we feel like in this area we are being followers. And I would also say that I have some concern that with neighboring jurisdictions already banning gas-powered leaf blowers. To the extent that our landscapers are transitioning, all of the gas-powered leaf blowers are going to be allocated to Arlington County for the next 3 years, which may make things worse, not better. And so I urge you to reduce the size of the phase-in period, and I thank you for your commitment to sustainability.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Next speaker.
Yes, our next speaker joining us virtually is Ms. Leslie Loudon, followed by our 3-minute speakers, beginning with Ms. Joan McIntyre.
Ms. Loudon, are you there?
Good morning.
Good morning. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Leslie Loudon, a 28-year resident of the North Highlands neighborhood. And we're very fortunate to be a vibrant community with lots of kids, parents, walkers, and bikers around throughout the day. The neighborhood includes over 120 townhomes. When their landscapers do their maintenance, multiple simultaneous gas-powered leaf blowers are deafening and make it impossible to enjoy the outdoors for hours. The gas fumes and noise are unhealthy for residents, the landscape workers, and for wildlife. The workers are exposed to carcinogens and increased risk of disease, as noted in the county staff presentation. Also, as noted earlier, using a gas leaf blower for just 1 hour has the same emissions as driving a car for 12 hours. The carbon footprint and pollution from these blowers are part of why DC banned them in 2022, and Montgomery County did so last year. Landscapers in those jurisdictions have adapted and replaced equipment where needed, demonstrating how it can be done expeditiously in our region. Electric leaf blowers can yield a return on investment in 2.5 to 3 years due to reduced fuel, repair, and maintenance costs. The variable speeds offered by the electric blowers also facilitate more sustainable landscaping by redistributing leaves across garden beds and under trees where they decompose naturally to create organic matter that feeds the soil. So it's great that Arlington's moving forward with this ban, but 3 years is too long to wait. I request the county revise the timeline to 12 months or 18 months, as Alexandria is doing, which should give landscaping companies and homeowners sufficient time to adapt. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Loudon. Next speaker.
Yes, and moving on to our 3-minute speakers, beginning with Ms. Joan McIntyre, followed by Stephen D'Alessio.
Ms. McIntyre.
Good morning. I'm Joan McIntyre speaking on behalf of...
I think that you're there you go. There you go. Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Joan McIntyre speaking on behalf of Eco Action Arlington, Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, Arlington Hub, and the Sierra Club Potomac River Group. As you know, our organizations have long supported and advocated the phasing out of gas-powered leaf blowers in the county and are pleased that the county is finally moving forward on this issue. Gas-powered leaf blowers, as has already been mentioned, are not just a nuisance, but are a serious noise, work health, public health, climate change, and environmental impact. It's now time to protect Arlingtonians, including the landscape workers who are most exposed to harmful impacts. However, waiting 3 years before the ban is put into place runs against the will of the people and is unnecessary. You've received hundreds of letters in support of a ban, and the unprecedented response to the community engagement has been overwhelmingly supportive. Neighboring jurisdictions, including Montgomery County and the District of Columbia, have already implemented bans, and the city of Alexandria will do so in November after an 18-month phase-in. Companies are already adapting. As more companies in the region make the transition, there are growing examples of best strategies for integrating electric leaf blowers into their operations that companies can learn from. We support a strong community outreach efforts and modest incentives to help landscape companies, particularly small ones, make the transitions. So we ask that you please amend the request to advertise to allow for a phase-in period of 12 to 18 months. And when you take up the ordinance that next month, you approve a phase-in period, ideally of 1 year, but at most 18 months. Let's join our neighbors in banning the scourge and give Arlingtons the peace and quiet they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McIntyre. Next speaker.
Our next speaker is Stephen D'Alessio, followed by Andy Shelton.
Hi, hi. My name is Stephen D'Alessio, and I'm speaking against the 3-year phase-in period of the gas-powered leaf blower ban. Gas-powered leaf blowers do real harm to our Arlington community in many ways. First and foremost, gas-powered leaf blowers contribute to climate change through their emissions, which include carbon emissions. As this body has discussed many times, climate change is a major threat to Arlington through its contribution to countless issues. Most important for Arlington's sake are larger storms, more intense droughts, and flooding that constrain our infrastructure and threaten the lives of our residents. There's even emerging evidence that climate change contributes to the higher prices that Arlingtonians and Americans across the country are dealing with. The issue requires fast action, and the 3-year phase-in period is too much of a delay. Gas-powered leaf blowers also contribute to harm to human beings through their noise, as has been brought up several times. I'm sure that many people in this room can relate to the unpleasant racket that a gas-powered blower can create on a quiet Saturday morning like this one, and they actually exceed Arlington's noise ordinance. More than just a nuisance, the sounds have been related to health issues such as hypertension and hearing loss. Gas-powered leaf blowers also have impacts on human health because of the substances that they emit that can include carbon monoxide and particulate matter, which can contribute to conditions such as asthma and bronchitis. Landscape workers are some of the people most impacted, so this issue intersects with equity concerns. Claims that a 3-year phase-in program are necessary because of how difficult the transition will be are unsubstantiated. Neighboring communities such as Montgomery and DC have already implemented such bans, and Alexandria will soon be implementing its own ban. Clearly, policies are workable, and further delay will weaken Arlington's reputation as an environmental leader in Virginia and allow for continued harm to Arlingtonian residents. I urge this board to implement the gas-powered leaf ban on a significantly faster 12-month timeline in order to help protect Arlington from the intense harms that come from the device's noise and emissions, as well as the extreme impacts of climate change.
Thank you, Mr. D'Alessio. Next speaker.
And our next speaker is Andy Shelton.
Mr. Shelton.
Good morning. My name is Andy Shelton. I'm a lifelong Arlington resident. I was born here, raised here, attended Arlington schools, and started my landscape business here immediately after high school. My family has proudly served this community for nearly 3 decades. I understand and respect the county's goal of improving quality of life for residents. However, I do not believe the financial and operational realities facing small businesses have been fully considered. For my company alone, the estimated cost of replacing our fleet of blowers is approximately $194,000. This figure does not include the additional costs associated with supporting battery-powered operations such as electrical service upgrades, charging infrastructure, facility modifications, vehicle charging solutions, or the labor required to manage and charge equipment every day. To put that cost in perspective, the commercial gas-powered blower our crews currently use costs approximately $499. The step-down battery-powered model with the number of batteries and chargers needed is going to cost us $6,229. This is over 12 times the cost of the current blower we operate with. I would encourage the board to carefully evaluate how this transition will function in practice. Many commercial landscaping crews operate continuously throughout the day at multiple job sites. If battery equipment cannot reliably meet these demands, companies may be forced, like us, to use gasoline-powered generators in their trucks to simply keep equipment charged and operational. If that becomes a practical solution, is it fair to ask whether the county is actually reducing emissions or simply shifting where these emissions occur? That question deserves careful consideration before imposing significant costs on local businesses. Many service businesses like mine have already been pushed outside of Arlington because of the continued loss of commercial and industrial space within the county. We travel into Arlington every day to serve Arlington residents, and a rapid transition to battery-powered equipment increases those costs even further, which will unfortunately be passed to Arlington homeowners that we service. My concern is not about resisting change. Our industry has always adapted to new technology and new regulations. The question is whether the proposed timeline is realistic and whether the burden of this transition is shared fairly. I respectfully ask the board to consider a minimum 3-year period and financial assistance or incentives to help small businesses like ours make this transition. This would allow companies to replace equipment gradually while achieving the county's goals, while placing disproportionate burdens on the local businesses that can serve this community every day. As someone who was born here, raised here, and built a business here, I want Arlington to succeed. I simply ask that the local businesses that served this community for decades remain part of that future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Mr. Clerk, are there any other speakers?
There are no further speakers on this item.
Got it. With that, I don't believe we have commissions on this. The conversation is now with the board. Colleagues, I propose that there are two options for how we proceed. We can move directly to a motion, and being transparent, the motion that I will propose is 18 months. And we can have fulsome discussion. I'll reiterate that it is request to advertise time, which may be disappointing to a lot of you because you get to come back next month and offer similar thoughts.
Everyone wants to spend their time here.
Well, yeah, that's separate but because it's request to advertise, we both want to hear the comments that you have made and ask the question, have sufficiently fulsome discussion so that we frame this for next month in a good way. The only substantive issue, there could be other substantive issues. Do colleagues want to have a round of questions or move straight to a motion wherein we can have lots of questions after that? Go ahead, Mr. Spain.
Mr. Chair, I think we should perhaps, sure, your motion is fine, but I wouldn't mind having some discussion first.
Go for it. Yeah. And you don't have to be the first to ask questions, because if
they say discuss away, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
One, I think the time is ripe after a lot of advocacy over many years, long before I showed up, right, to really move the needle when it comes to this level of ordinance, basically through the RTA. But I do have some questions, and I want to, Jen, come to you here. We've heard a lot, I at least have heard a lot from the business community, and I think there are some hard realities, with how you arrived at 3 years versus where we may land at 18 months. Because what I'm hearing is that there's going to be a substantial cost incurred, right, by the business community, and that does not pass me by. Now, be quite perfectly upfront, I want to land at a place where we have prohibition, right? But can you talk a little bit about why 3 years?
Absolutely. So when we conducted our research, we looked across the country at localities that have already made the transition. And we also took into consideration more specifically what was happening in the DMV. Further, so generally speaking, the average was 1 to 3 year transition time. And everyone we spoke to said you must have a transition time. It gives businesses and residents time to adjust. Maybe they've just made investments in a completely new set of gas-powered leaf blowers. And the recognizing upfront cost being a real barrier to entry. We looked specifically at DC, and we had conversations with enforcement officials there, and their transition time was 3 years. What they said, sort of looking back, was that businesses didn't wait until the effective date to buy all of their equipment. The large businesses started to transition 18, 24 months time frame, so before the effective date, whereas the smaller businesses were slowly changing over their inventory in a manner worked with their finances. And so by the time the effective date rolled around, DC didn't actually start citing. They issued warnings, and probably maybe 8 months into that is when they started issuing citations. So there was a long lead time, which very much played a role in our decision making. Not to mention the feedback that we heard directly from the businesses. And we called, as I mentioned in the presentation, we called as many as we could possibly speak with, registered in Arlington. And we also looked back at our own transition. Arlington took a little over 3 years to transition our own internal fleet of electric handheld landscape equipment. And we did that with federal funding. We did that recognizing that the technology of the equipment wasn't quite there. Now, it is getting very close, but it's still not perfect. And it really just depends on the model that you choose, the electric leaf blower model that you choose. Not to mention that you also have to buy many batteries in order to support, like during fall leaf blowing season, you're talking 10, 12-hour work, and the batteries last at most an hour. Now, one could say, not to get too deep into the details, but one could say, well, you could educate the employees on how to use leaf blowers. Yes, absolutely. But that takes time. All of this is a learning process. And so when we looked back at, just sort of wrapping up, the national benchmarks, we looked specifically at DC. Montgomery County gave a 2-year transition time as another example, and also looked inwards at what we did. Mm-hmm. We thought that 3 years was a reasonable, there's no perfect solution here, but that it was a reasonable approach to transitioning, really understanding that we should be focusing on education and communication first and foremost, and voluntary compliance, because that's really where we want to go.
Well, thank you. And I think a takeaway from your presentation that I wrote down, you mentioned Montgomery County, and they spent thousands upon thousands of dollars in the education campaign. I just want to note for the record, if we are going to arrive at a point through education that it's going to take, I know Montgomery County has about 1 million folks, but much larger than us, but it is going to take some willingness. The last question, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, as this presentation and the staff report, and even from the commissions, we talk a lot about public safety, public health, quality of life, which I'm all in. However, what is missing, in my opinion, from presentation is actually, context from our very own public health officials, DHS, as it relates, because we're talking about noise pollution, talking about air pollution. I like the shirt you have, Margaret, that says, I couldn't take my eye off of it. Birds don't have noise canceling headphones. My goodness, I love that. Is there a reason, and maybe county managers, you can talk about this, given the sensitivity surrounding this, especially with noise and public health, we don't have input from there?
We took the EPA study, which had clear sort of information and research-backed reporting on the impacts of public health as our key sort of piece of evidence that there was a strong public health impact, and made a direct association with the impact to our community. And there were many other studies that we looked at as well to help inform our decision-making.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll have some questions, at least 2 more questions at the end, but that's all I have for right now.
Thank you. We'll go to you, Vice Chair Coffey. I will say I will simultaneously disappoint some, but everybody will get, to be clear, the motion that I'm going to propose is going to allow us next month to consider 3 years and to consider 18 months. And if we don't add to the motion, then all we consider is 3 years. And so that's for context at the RTA stage. That doesn't mean we will all agree. It just is context so we all have background. Vice Chair Coffey.
Yeah, thank you. And, I think as we have this discussion, think about it being an RTA, and think about the feedback, the whole of the feedback we have received, I think really what we are discussing is what that phase out period is going to be. And I do think that we should be clear and honest with our community that I think the end result of this process is going to be that the leaf blower, the gas-powered leaf blowers will be banned, and we will expect a transition to the electric-powered ones. And so the key question is, how fast can we go reasonably? And I think in a past presentation, there was a slide comparing the different phase-out timelines proposed or adopted by different localities in the region. I'm wondering if we have that available.
Hopefully it will show up on screen.
Hopefully. We haven't had a tech issue yet today, so.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's about time. Okay, and so I think this is really helpful. Obviously, it's a pretty wide range of phase out periods, and I think I have certainly heard some of these shorter phase out periods being used as evidence that we could or should move faster. And I'm wondering, given that they are ahead of us in the process, if you have anything to share about how it's going with the faster phase outs, because I think one of the great concerns is if you move too quickly, people just aren't going to do it. And then where does that leave us? So anything you can share there.
Sure. So as part of our deep research, we made calls to small and large businesses in the surrounding jurisdictions that have already either proposed, in this case the City of Alexandria, or have already implemented a leaf blower prohibition. And what we heard from businesses are two really sort of eye-opening things. One is that those that have made the transition, when they run out of batteries, because inevitably they do, and they've run out of the ability to charge, maybe they don't have a van, maybe they're using a resident to charge, and at some point they may run out, they switch to gas-powered leaf blowers. So they're not gone. They're still operating, and they're running the risk, they told me, that we just run the risk of being cited. The second thing is that there are businesses, small and large, that have just decided to not transition because it is cheaper to be cited than to make the transition. And yes, they are they're on their own time, slowly making the transition, but they're not doing it at the speed at which the jurisdiction is asking them to do it. And each jurisdiction has their own enforcement process. So in Montgomery County, you get 4 tries before you get cited. The 4th try, you get cited. So that it gives them some runway. One, I think it's really important because it's education, communication first, but it gives them runway to potentially not make that transition until the 4th, or maybe even beyond. So those were important inputs as we were considering how this would really work in practice, and why I'm recommending that we focus on voluntary compliance and finding a way forward from that. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. And then I think the other part of it is I believe we've had so many presentations on this. I don't even know when it was. At some point, we were talking about kind of national best practice and standards. And one of the things that you presented as the most effective way to get to the ultimate transition over to electric is the incentives. And can you talk a little bit about the dollar amount that other communities have invested in terms of incenting their commercial businesses into compliance?
Sure. I'll give you 2 examples, but I have
many
reams of paper with the research that we conducted. So just local examples. Montgomery County, Mr. Spain referenced that in his question to me. When they first started, so first and foremost, they invested in a fair amount of education in advance of the effective date. And not only that, but they had, I want to say it was like $350,000 that they set aside to allocate to residents and businesses, and there was like a scaling that depending on the size of your business. If you were a small business, you got a greater amount of incentives, I think in the range of like $1,200. Don't quote me on the exact, but it was about that. And then there was a smaller amount for larger businesses. Mm-hmm. And every year they issue, they have a round of incentives. And I spoke to an official over in Montgomery County a couple weeks ago, and they said that they completed their last round of incentives, essentially, and within 24 hours it was completely subscribed, and they had to shut down their offering. And most of it, about 75% of it or so, went to businesses. But that's one leaf blower one electric powered leaf blower is, and I have a backup slide for that too, if you're curious. It costs maybe $400 or $500, up to even $800, depending on what model, again, that you're looking for, what package it comes with. And so an incentive of, say, 1,000, just using an average, is going to cover one. That doesn't mean that that won't even cover the cost of the 8 batteries. And this is, we double checked this with a couple of different businesses. We talked to our own folks in Parks and Natural Resources, within the Department of Parks and Recreation, and you need a fair amount of batteries to get through the day. Now, we all have different ways of working, but that doesn't really go all that far. And then Alexandria is a sort of a smaller example. They were incentivizing residents through an organization associated with the Council of Governments, and I think they had dedicated about $40,000 for like a leaf blower swap, but that doesn't address the business need particularly.
Okay.
And the reason, the challenge for us in Virginia is that, and abroad across the country is really, we have to consider the IRS guidelines on how we incentivize private landscape companies to make the transition, because there's like limits that we can operate within. So in any case, that's those are 2 examples, and I have many other if you're curious.
No, I think that's really great to kind of just ground us in putting something in your ordinance doesn't mean it necessarily happens in practice. So, and I'll pass along for now.
Thank you, Vice Chair Coffey. Ms. Cunningham.
I think all of that is really, really good grounding, and I really appreciate especially our business owners being here today. It's not the most fun place to be all the time, but your voice does matter a lot. And I do have fun here sometimes. Sorry, I didn't mean to suggest not. I think that this question of the significant cost is really important. So first of all, this has been, an item I do want us to consider. The emissions elements alone for our region and for our young people and for our workers are really quite significant, and it is something that we can move the needle on. But there's a cost, and I think the question of how do we spread that cost, I think the timing helps a little bit, but I would really, I will support advertising a range, though I am trending towards a longer time because of the impact on our businesses. But I would invite our environmental advocates, since we have just talked about some of the numbers, right? Those are thousands of dollars, even if we were to have an incentive program, which would cost tax dollars, not just to send dollars out the door, but to administer. It may be that our nonprofit environmental partners are much, much better suited to provide low interest loans, or to do a fundraise, or to do some sort of incentive program. And if we want to seriously talk about shortening that time frame at all in July, I would invite folks to bring some of those ideas forward. And then separately, just as an action item for July, looking at personal property tax and how much we might be able to help there, both in immediate relief or in long-term relief and rebate, I think will be an important tool that Richmond has given us. We try to use all the ones that they do actually give us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Mr. Karantonits.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Fioretti, amazing work, and I will speak later about the reason why we wanted to do this thorough work. There is a good reason. So I have a question on the famous level of comfort slide. This slide, if I read it without any other contextual information, it looks like the clients, the customers, want something which the suppliers in the market, the businesses don't offer. They offer the opposite, right? It looks like a mismatch. Now, I understand, I mean, the vast majority of customers want electric leaf blowers, and the vast majority of, of landscape companies are very uncomfortable in providing them. The question is more for what do we know? No, I understand that the clients weren't asked whether, they would like to, they would be ready to pay a higher price for the different type of service, etc. So there are a lot of assumptions. This can be a little bit murky. But on the lawn care businesses, I have a fundamental question. So we asked these businesses during a period where basically everybody is moving towards a ban or a phase out of fossil fuel powered landscape tools, and secondly, most jurisdictions are now banning them. So what is the point of saying I'm very uncomfortable with something that is actually happening? And did they say, for example, yes, I'm uncomfortable, but we have now a strategy to adapt? And I mean, we have been talking about this maybe for what? Seriously, 5-6 years? More, actually, than that. So is there zero understanding that the writing on the wall and it's actually going to happen?
I'd say not all businesses are plugged into what's happening at the local government level all the time. And when we called the Arlington registered garden and lawn companies, and I spoke in Spanish in some instances where language potentially could be a barrier, the smaller companies didn't even know that we were really exploring this as an option. And so larger ones, yes, right? They're working in multiple jurisdictions. But in some cases, these smaller businesses, they come in, they come out, right? They enter the landscape sort of field, if you will, and might end up working for someone or doing something else. So they're trying their best to make a living, and working all the time. This is what they've shared with me. I'm not. I just wanted to pass that along, that they're trying to make a living. They're not really focusing on what's happening big picture. And I think that's a real concern, is if the small businesses are not paying attention because they're busy trying to do, just operate their business, then I don't know if we can say uniformly that, well, they should see this coming, because not everybody does. They just don't see it.
Thank you, Ms. Fioretti. I mean, in the time we'll have to deliberate on this, I want to understand that a little bit deeper. In the past 7 years, we've seen also other things. So, for example, business models have changed. There were specialist companies that would do the electric equipment now, and they would, lease their services to the main contractors, et cetera. So there are a lot of changes that happen every time we have a significant technological innovation and some regulatory action on that. So for me, this is an important place to understand it in depth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carantonis. So I see your light, Mr. Spain. What I propose is that we get a motion on the table and then follow up with additional questions, if that can work. I'll effectuate both 3 years and 18 months from now would be possible. So I move that the county board adopt the resolution attached to the board report dated May 14th, 2026, namely to authorize advertisement of a public hearing no sooner than the July 18th, 2026 county board meeting to consider adoption of an ordinance effective July 18th, 2029 to prohibit the operation of gas-powered leaf blowers and gas-powered leaf vacuums at any time. And in addition to the above, I also move that the county board authorize advertisement of an alternative effective date of the proposed ordinance of January 18th, 2028. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. I'll just speak briefly to this and invite colleagues to, fully discuss. What isn't in this motion is 1 year from now, is the Alexandria date. And for me, at least, implementing this is critical, and I think it's a fair argument. We hope that Rip Sullivan and Senator Salim pass a bill really fast to get all this done. But I do think implementing is important, and that's why 18 months and 3 years are in the proposed motion. The 200,000 plus amounts that the business owners described, I want to learn more about that. And I want to learn more about the environmental pieces that Ms. Cunningham mentioned. And so it's an attempt to listen at this stage to all of the feedback we have gotten and then get clearer and more thoughtful. And I would say that I might have started yesterday hoping to do Alexandria's time because I sort of think you can magically force people to do stuff. But our own experience is contrary to that. We have all of our leaf blowers that are electric, and I'm not sure that they're at that phase even yet. So I would argue that in some ways we're ahead of where adjoining jurisdictions are. And so that's that. Open the floor, Mr. Spain, to start. Ask questions, and let's do it fully for what we need to do today, of course, keeping in mind that we will have a more fulsome and probably more informed discussion over the coming weeks into the July meeting. Mr. Spain.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll look forward to those conversations over the next few weeks. I do have a question that we can probably come back to at the next month or in the coming weeks. First, I'll say, look, I use an electric leaf blower, and I have like a 100-yard line. It's all over the place. But as an advocate for not only the business community and also for environmental justice, I have to square my decision on, some of the things I've heard, right? And you may have heard me allude to this about the cost, again, that's going to be incurred. My question, Jen, if maybe you can come back, and Mr. County Manager, I heard reference earlier today about it's one thing to talk about the leaf blowers and we can get into like the DPAs, the decimals that go out with that. But there's also, when you think about the whole of community approach, it's not just leaf blowers, right? It's lawnmowers. I saw a young kid on a lawnmower that just push it. You're talking about string trimmers, right? All of these have DPIs that exhume a large number of like decibels, and they're being used, right? Or generators, right? So it's a question about, right now we're focusing on gas-powered leaf blowers, but I also want to understand some of the cost analysis. You mentioned just now the $800 that it would cost plus 8 batteries. I would like to see some level of a chart, like just some compare. You had that, right? Can you just pull that up again and then maybe share a little bit of that with the public? And I understand, Mr. Chair, we're going to come back next month, but I just want to kind of digest that for a second, if you can talk to it.
Okay.
All right.
All right, there we go.
Here we go. Yes.
So I have a electric leaf blower comparison, and then I also have a comparison for gas-powered leaf blowers. So what you're looking at here is the electric leaf blower comparison, and this is not an exhaustive list, but it is one that represents a variety of brands. And I included as a bonus, Greenworks has a new electric-powered leaf blower. It's a backpack leaf blower that's coming soon. That's 50 newtons, which is actually pretty good, and would love to see that in operation in terms of the power and the strength. So just walking through here, the first column here is the cost of the kit, which is the device plus the battery and sometimes the charger. Each brand and model sort of changes, and so apples to apples, you can't get a perfect comparison, but this is as close as we're going to get at this point. And as you can see, steel and is on the higher end of the cost. Steel certainly is popular in Virginia. And if you work across the line, the cost for one crew of 3. So usually it's like 3 to 4 employees per crew. Small businesses, maybe 3 to 4 crews, and then larger businesses are 14 and 15. So as you can see, as you move your way along, increase the number of crews, the cost gets pretty substantial, and it doesn't include any changes that you need to make to your warehouse or wherever you're charging your batteries. Perhaps you need to buy a Ford Lightning or some other type of vehicle that's solar powered in order to charge. So those are other cost considerations that companies are thinking about in their process. So
you say you have one on gas?
Yes.
Let me see the gas.
Okay. Yes.
Here we go.
Here we go. I didn't break down the crews just because I think it's So here, some other popular brands, and the cost of the device, it's just the device that you need to buy, and then you're purchasing gasoline or diesel or whatever other options are available to fuel them.
Thank you. I would just say as I close, my understanding is that normal DPA is around 60 for the just normal. The decimal, right? It's about 60?
For what?
Just average
Like
walking
ambient noise,
ambient noise,
60, 70 or so. Yeah, it just depends.
Yeah. So with that being said, if we look at, I'm talking noise pollution only, we go back to our even our electric leaf blowers, they are a bit over the typical average of what normal will be considered when it talks about noise pollution.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Ms. Coffey, yes, I thought your light was on. I saw it before. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're going to have a lot of continued engagement and discussion, and so I don't want to take up much more time. I think just as a matter of a logistical question for either the attorney or the clerk, does Mr. DeFranti's motion allow us to adopt 36 months or 18 months, or does it also allow for anything in between the two?
It would permit in between.
Okay.
You can go longer, but not shorter.
Great, thank you. With that, I think this has answered all the questions I need for today, and we will continue our discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. Appreciate it. Mr. Karantonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Concluding on this at this level of discussion over the RTA, the request to advertise. First of all, I want to make very clear what I believe our common intention here is. First of all, we all want cleaner air. There is less noise. We want better and soil quality conserving landscape practices. We need to really think how we use lawnmowers because currently leaf blowers are used as brooms. So they're not only to remove some, biomass that is maybe in the right of way, but also to pristinely empty everything from anything that is considered problematic, and that's just not good practice. Education has to go this way as well, as Mr. Harnick mentioned. Then we need to incentivize and actually to reward transition to better and more value-creating business practices, and make sure that we future-proof jobs in the landscaping business. This doesn't necessarily mean that we should be paying somebody with public money to buy the right equipment. This actually means that we have to be smart regulators here and also go a little bit further than the local regulation and ask ourselves what else needs to be in place. So, for example, the big companies that are now equipment suppliers like Steel or Husqvarna, etc., they know how to comply, for example, with unifying and standardizing their batteries so that you don't lock into one battery system, and then if you change or something else changes and you cannot use it for any other tool, etc. This is the same discussion that we had with the charging systems, the USB-C versus the proprietary charging systems on cell phones, etc. One of the benefits of this discussion in our community is also to signal to state and federal regulators that enough is enough, and we need useful product regulation at the national level that allows us to make reasonable policy around here. What we don't want is that we have regulatory defiance, de facto defiance that we heard at the end of this, that we are sliding in a situation where we have to literally police the place and manage citations, etc. And we don't want to lose jobs in this business, and we don't want to you know, to have a blowback, for lack of a better word. I will tell you a personal story. The closest I came to the former Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, was about her landscaping initiative at this observatory circle, the seat of the Vice President. She was the very first one who contracted with an Arlingtonian-based, minority-owned, small landscape company the care of the circle for 1 year. It was a $70,000 contract. And she had to cancel that after 1 year because they didn't go through the instances to see how much it costs, how would they explain that to, to the auditors and to the political opposition, etc. So I don't want this to happen here. We have learned enough to make it sturdy and durable and, invite the next phase, which would be the electrification of all landscaping equipment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. And your finish is why the motion is not on the 1 year. It is 18 months to 3 years. And I assume, unless the attorney contradicts me, the way we would advertise, the shortest period that we could have is 18 months under this motion. So I just want to be that transparent. I would ask those of our residents who have advocated and continue to advocate that I think Ms. Fioretti has made the case that implementation is a key, and so that's what leads to the motion. The question is on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 5-0. We will now turn to our next item. You are also welcome to stay, but you do not have to if you're not interested. Yeah. Colleagues, I'd propose that we start the next item. And so, Mr. Kushner, would you call the next item, please?
Certainly. Give me just a moment. Next item, number 36, is related to the Alexan Courthouse development at 2015th Street North. It's a two-part item. Part A is the site plan amendment to permit redevelopment of the site with a new building consisting of up to 394 residential dwelling units with modifications of zoning ordinance requirements as necessary to achieve the proposed development located at 2015th Street North. Part B is the ordinance to vacate an easement for public street and utility purposes on this property owned by PVE Companies Limited Liability Corporation and Cedar Hills Limited Liability Corporation, known as 2015th Street North, Arlington, Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Kushner. Mr. Schwartz, the staff presentation.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With me today is Matt Pfeiffer, who will be lead on the presentation. He's also joined by Sergio Vercochia and Mike Haluski, both of the Department of Environmental Services. And I will turn it over to Mr. Pfeiffer as he prepares for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Chairman, members of the County Board, my name is Matt Pfeiffer with CPHD Planning Division, here to give the staff presentation on the Alexan Courthouse Site Plan Project. As Mr. Manager mentioned, we have Sergio Vercochia from Department of Environmental Services, Development Services Bureau, and Mike Haluski with the Department of Environmental Services Real Estate Bureau, who can help answer any questions. So there are two items before you today, a site plan amendment for the construction of a new 19-story residential building with some requested modifications, and also a vacation of public street and utilities easement, which is subject to the reservation of a sidewalk and utilities easement. So the site we're discussing is 2 blocks to the east of where we are today at 2015th Street North. This is east of the Arlington County Detention Center. It is north of the Telus Apartments building and west of the Odyssey condominiums and Prime Apartments. So it is bordered by 15th Street North on the north side, North Troy Street on the west side, and North Taft Street on the east side. Here are some images of the existing conditions of the site. There's currently a nearly vacant 10-story office building with a triangular footprint. A couple of things I'll point out here. There is an existing curb cut for parking garage access off of 15th Street North. There is also a staircase that is on North Troy Street. So So the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing office building and construct a new 19-story residential building with 394 units with a parking ratio of 0.65 spaces per unit. They will also be constructing a new 2,700 square foot pedestrian connection through the site. The applicant is requesting modifications for additional density, density exclusions, reduced residential parking ratio, and additional building height. The slide shows some aerial renderings of the proposed building. As you can see, the massing of the building steps down significantly on the North Troy Street frontage and also down 1 story on its on the wing that borders North Taft Street. This graphic shows the proposed vacation of the existing public street and utilities easement in blue hatching. Approximately 5,878 square feet of existing public street and utilities easement is proposed to be vacated, subject to the reservation of a public sidewalk easement over approximately 4,681 square feet of the vacation area, which is shown in the red cross hatching. Additional easements beyond the sidewalk and utilities easement reservation area shown above that are required for the project will be dedicated as part of the site plan process. The site is categorized as high office apartment hotel on the general land use plan. This corresponds to the existing CO mixed use district zoning. Both the general land use plan and zoning designations support multifamily residential development at this location. The applicant is not proposing to change either the GLUP designation or the zoning with this application. The site is also subject to the courthouse sector plan and the courthouse sector plan addendum from 1993. This block is identified as the SRA block in both of these plans. There are 2 main recommendations from the courthouse sector plan and sector plan addendum that are applicable to this site. One is that there is an east-west pedestrian linkage through the middle of the block. The courthouse plans imagine a network of linkages through the area that provide alternative pedestrian paths through courthouse. The second main piece of guidance is that the view corridor to the National Mall is preserved, looking through the detention center site to the east. Some other plans and policies that we reviewed during the review of the project include a resolution of concern regarding building heights related to the National Capital Mall access. Staff worked with colleagues at the National Capital Planning Commission to evaluate the additional height requested in the context of views to and from the National Mall. Secondly, we evaluated the policy on transforming commercial office buildings in Arlington, which states that decommissioning of underutilized office supply is a public priority. We also looked at the residential parking guidelines that identify the minimum parking for this site to be 0.3 spaces per unit. Okay, so we will get into some analysis of the site plan in this section. The site is designed to have loading, parking, and trash access points consolidated and located off of North Taft Street, in contrast to where they are now on 15th Street North. Staff supports this consolidation and location because it eliminates the curb cut on 15th Street. It limits conflict points between pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles, and it limits potential conflicts with driveways and maneuvers with County Justice and Detention Center to the west of the site that currently utilize North Troy Street. At the southern portion of the site, the applicant is proposing a public access easement over a pedestrian connection that ties into an existing connection on the property to the south. This will continue the link from North Troy Street to the west to North Taft Street to the east and create a more intuitive connection through the block. The applicant will also be relocating an existing crosswalk along 15th Street North to a safer location and a more convenient location outside of their, adjacent to their bike room, creating a safer Desire Line route for pedestrians to cross 15th Street North. They will also be buffering a portion of the bike lane along 15th Street North to create a safer bike environment. And you can see that on the northeastern side of the site. Okay, so the applicant is proposing a building of approximately 194 feet. The CO zoning district calls for a maximum height of 180 feet measured from the average site elevation and inclusive of all mechanical penthouse areas and parapet walls. The zoning ordinance allows for this to be modified under zoning ordinance provisions 15.59. The applicant is requesting an additional 14 feet of building height beyond what would otherwise be permitted. The greatest building height is concentrated along 15th Street North, and there are two wings that step down in height to 166 feet and 58 feet respectively. The courthouse sector plan calls for the preservation of a view corridor through this block. On the left-hand side, you can see the view looking from the County Justice Center block to the west of the subject site to the Washington Monument. On the right is the same view with a mock-up of the proposed building. There's no noticeable negative impact on the view corridor identified in the sector plan. Additionally, staff believes that the proposed height is appropriate at this location and generates more housing units close to the metro station. As mentioned previously, we also worked with our colleagues in the National Capital Planning Commission to review how this project would impact the Arlington skyline from the National Mall. You can see just a couple of the mock-ups that they prepared and analyzed during the review. The pink building is the Alexan building, and the yellow building is the Courthouse Landmark Block building, or also known as the Commodore, that recently finished construction and is at a higher elevation and a higher building height. The National Capital Planning Commission deemed that there would be minimal impact on the view shed, and as such, they did not have any opposition to the project. Also, as part of the project, the applicant will be dedicating an approximately 2,700 square foot public access easement to improve the pedestrian connection from Troy Street to Taft Street. On the left, you can see the applicant's proposal and existing conditions overlaid on a Google map view. You can see the existing public access connection that is on the Telus property that goes from Taft around the building to 14th Street and Troy Street. With the construction of the applicant's connection, you will be able to get from Troy Street to Taft Street with a more direct route. So the applicant is proposing 409,557 square feet of residential gross floor area. They have a 239,664 square foot gross floor area for their base density. Within that base density, the applicant will improve the streetscapes, implement a transportation demand management program to contribute to the underground utility fund, achieve their base affordable housing requirements either through a cash contribution or provision of committed affordable units, a public art contribution, and in-building wireless infrastructure. In order to earn additional density, the applicant will be either making a $5 million contribution to the Affordable Housing Investment Fund or providing 9 on-site affordable committed affordable units, They will also be dedicating a 2,400 square foot public access easement and constructing and maintaining the public passageway. Finally, they will be participating in the county's Green Building Incentive Program at the 0.25 FAR tier. So this slide provides an overview of student generation estimates for the proposed project provided by Arlington Public Schools. Using the two methodologies utilized by APS, it is estimated that the proposed project would generate between 22 and 46 students. So this project fulfills many county goals. It reduces the supply of underutilized office space from 31.5% to 28.3% within the courthouse submarket. It makes significant contributions to affordable housing, both through the base requirement and through the earning of additional density. It implements the courthouse sector plan vision of creating a series of pedestrian linkage networks throughout the courthouse area. It makes transportation improvements by updating streetscapes, creating a safer crosswalk on 15th Street North, and adding buffers to a portion of the bike lane along 15th Street North. And then finally, it is participating in the Green Building Incentive Program and committing to a LEED Gold building. For additional context on affordable housing, this slide shows the landscape of properties near the subject site that includes some amount of committed affordable units and market rate affordable units, or both. In total, within 1/2 mile of the site, there are approximately 1,775 existing CAF units and 2,440 existing MARC units. Staff took these data into account when considering its support for the optionality for the developer to decide before a footing to grade permit is issued whether it will provide a cash contribution or in-kind units to meet the affordable housing commitments with this project. Additionally, this project was reviewed through an equity lens. We had 16 different groups represented on the site plan review committee for the project. The project furthers equity goals by creating more housing in a transit-rich area. It contributes to affordable housing, and it makes transportation improvements at the site. This project went through an SPRC process where we discussed land use, density, site design, building height, open space, transportation, among other issues. It was also heard at the Transportation Commission, Planning Commission, and Housing Commissions, all of whom voted to recommend approval of the project unanimously. And so with that, staff recommends adoption of the site plan amendment ordinance and adoption of the proposed vacations to facilitate the redevelopment. This concludes our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you very much for the presentation. We will now turn to our Planning Commission, Ms. Steinberger.
Hello. Sorry, I do have notes on this, which I will speak to.
No worries. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Pfeiffer. And Mr. Ventrone is getting ready, and we'll go to Ms. Steinberger.
Yeah,
you look
that's
ready.
Fine.
Great.
The Planning Commission overall, very supportive of the project, as you've heard. We're pleased to see a project transitioning from what is currently underutilized office space into what we expect to be highly utilized living spaces. It's been well received. The project's been well received since the SPRC stage. Biggest questions we sort of focused on were with regards to the affordable housing approach, whether it would be in on-site units or a cash contribution equivalent. We understand that for, there are valid reasons to pursue either approach, and we understand it's a little atypical maybe for at this stage to be in for the developer to still sort of be like, hey, we'll make that decision, both kind of work. So we're curious to see where that lands. As a Planning Commission body, we do generally emphasize, not simply for this location, this developer, but in general, that we do like to see on-site units because we think we get a wider range of units in more places. So that's generally the approach that we take, and there were comments to that effect from myself and other commissioners at our June hearing on this item. And one other thing I do want to emphasize, because we don't necessarily always get this, is we even received very high praise from Bernie Byrne with regards to the prolific use of native species and support for pollinators on site. So I felt like that deserved its own call out, because we as a Planning Commission were like, whoa. So I think that deserves, special credit as well. And there was, of course, nothing's perfect. So there was some feedback that maybe there could be more biophilia on the roof. But by and large, we're very supportive of the project, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But there's not much more I have to say unless you have very specific questions about something that I didn't answer yet. Thank you.
Thank you, and I did kind of throw a curveball that I didn't provide the applicant the opportunity to offer their presentation, so the fact that you might not have been immediately set, Ms. Steinberger, is on me as not running the right show.
I was confused by that.
Yes, but you said whoa, so I'd like to keep you on your toes. But to the applicant, and you now have a new approach which provides the context of the Planning Commission as you make your presentation. To you, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Ms. Steinberger. That is helpful. I thought you had noted my technological distress, which is why you gave me a moment. So we're going to try to share our presentation here, and we'll see if it works. So it did. Great. Well, thank you all for your time this morning. My name is Kedrick Whitmore. I'm a land use and zoning attorney with Venable LLP, and we're very excited to bring you our proposal for 2015th Street North. On the next slide, you can see here the property is located in the heart of the RB corridor between Courthouse and Roslyn. Zooming in to the site a little closer, you can see the proximity of the site to the Courthouse Metro there to the northwest. A couple of other important points here are the view east from Courthouse Plaza that you can see denoted there, and the relationship to the Telus Apartments and the associated open space to the south. On the next slide is some additional information about the existing conditions at the site. One thing to note is that there's a really significant grade change, and you can see it there in the diagram on the left, that the grade changes by about 22 feet going from northeast to southwest. And that has driven a lot of the design, particularly in the existing condition, which you can see on the right here with the views from Taft Street. Not the best pedestrian environment, a lot of above grade structure related to the garage. On the next slide are similar views from 15th Street and from Troy Street. Again, a lot of garage infrastructure, not a very pedestrian-friendly environment in the current condition that it is today. On the next slide is some information about that view corridor that Mr. Pfeiffer mentioned. As he noted, the sector plan addendum calls for preservation of that view, and we've taken that into account in our development of the site. This is the existing view east to the Washington Monument. So the next slide has some more information about our proposal. We are proposing to remove that existing office building and replace it with a residential building with 394 units. So the next slide here gives you a little bit of information about the massing and the architecture. I won't spend too much time on these slides, but you can see we've oriented it around a bracket shape with two separate bars protruding. You can see on the right image the Telus Plaza that's located to the south of the property and kind of encompassed by those two bars coming off of the main bar. Next couple of slides, I think we can kind of walk through these, but in general, we've really tried to improve the pedestrian environment in a way very different than what exists today. This is what our entrance is going to look like at 15th Street and Taft. So the next slide here does show a little more information coming around that corner, and I want to note a couple things here. One is that this lobby, this main entrance here, is going to be addressed on 15th Street, but it actually wraps around the corner and has a significant presence over on Taft Street. And that's going to be important as we talk about the operation of the site later. I'll also point out that, as Mr. Pfeiffer mentioned, we've consolidated the garage entrances. We removed the curb cut on 15th Street and brought both the loading and the parking there around to Taft, which you can see on the extreme left of this rendering. So on the next slide here, this is another view of that Washington Monument to the west from Courthouse Plaza. This time we've got the existing view on the left, and then we've got our proposed rendering of the building on the right. As you can see, we preserve the view, and we actually push the building a little further back so that there is a little more area in that view looking east. So on the next slide, this is some information about the circulation. We're not changing the circulation in a huge way. It's a square today. It's going to remain a square, but we are making a number of pedestrian and vehicular improvements through the site. A couple that I'll bring to your attention. Again, we have removed the curb cut on 15th Street, and we've consolidated those vehicular entrances on the southeast side that you see in the yellow and red arrows. We've also made 15th Street a purely pedestrian entrance as well as bike entrance. And then again, you can see that main entrance there at the northwest corner of Taft and 15th. We're also very proud about having at-grade bicycle storage here. So on the next slide, I mentioned the improvements we're making. We're making quite a few throughout the site. I won't dwell on any of these too much, but I do want to call particular attention to two of them. One is the relocated and improved crosswalks that you see along 15th Street. The other is the pickup drop-off area that you see on Taft Street. And again, we think that that's going to be very easily accessible and noticeable to your Uber drivers, your DoorDash drivers, because that lobby wraps around to Taft Street. You move around the corner, take a right, and your Pudo area is right there. We think that's going to operate very efficiently in the complete condition. On the next slide, some additional information about our community benefits overall. In addition to those streetscape improvements, we are participating in the Green Building Incentive Program. We are going to be providing public open space, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And as Ms. Steinberger alluded to, we have agreed to an option for cash or on-site units for both the base density, which is typical and required by the ordinance, as well as the bonus density. And then a standard suite of TMP and public art as you'd expect to see in any 4.1 application. So a little more information about the open space here that we wanted to talk about. We're very excited about this. So in the current condition, you can see these are the entrances to the existing pathway across the block. Not exactly the most inviting and friendly ways, saying, hey, come across here. This is going to be a nice, pleasant walk. And we're going to improve that dramatically in our proposal. So on the next slide, you can see information about what this is going to look like. So this, on the right side, is an existing entrance from the east that will be moved, that you can use to move across the block in the current condition. On the left side of the slide, this is our proposed additional open space that we will be adding here to make this connection. We're connecting so that there's a true through connection on the block. We're also trying to connect this in kind of a character manner. There's a poem that currently exists on the east side, "Be noble, for you are made of stars." We are going to take that theme, bring it across to the west side, add the rest of that poem, "Be humble, for you are made of earth," and we're going to carry that earth theme throughout the design of this open space. So you can see some more information on the next couple of slides to that effect. We've really leaned into the curvilinear design. We've really tried to use our native plantings, made this area very green, while still making it a safe and efficient method for crossing the block. So a couple more images on the next slide. With carrying that same theme forward as you move west out to Troy Street. And then the next slide is just a comparison with that entrance as it exists today on the top and what it will look like in the proposed condition in the future. And finally, want to just give a little information about, on the next slide, about the transportation improvement that this is going to create. So this is a little zoomed out so you can see both the proposed site and the Telus site. And what you can see in that purple path, that's the existing path across the block today. And what you'll notice is that while you can go east-west between Taft and Troy Street, at the Troy Street side, you then have to make a very long detour around the block to get back down to street level, such that you're basically walking around the block anyway. What we're going to be providing is a spur off of that existing line there that you see in the light blue that's going to dramatically cut down the walking distance there and going to make it a much quicker and add real porosity to the block and a real through connection that we think is going to be really helpful going forward. So with that, I'll close and we'll be here for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Now to Mr. Ventrone, thank you for being patient as we work through.
I had to change my remarks from morning to good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Sure.
It is my pleasure to be here this afternoon to strongly support the affordable housing component of the proposed Alexon Courthouse development and answer any questions you may have. This project represents an excellent example of how Arlington can leverage redevelopment opportunities to create both new housing supply and affordable housing in a highly desirable transit-oriented location. The proposal will replace a largely underutilized office building with approximately 394 new residential units in a transit-oriented rich area, helping address Arlington's continuing housing shortage. My gym is in the Telus building. I'm very familiar with the area. The underutilized commercial building is very much underutilized, and this new structure would be a welcome addition to the neighborhood. Of particular importance is the affordable housing commitment associated with this project. Whether the developer elects to provide on-site committed affordable units or make a significant contribution to the Affordable Housing Investment Fund, the project will create meaningful affordable housing opportunities for Arlington residents. The staff report notes that a $5 million contribution to AHIV could potentially leverage the creation of approximately 43 affordable units elsewhere in the county, serving in households earning up to 60% area median income. The project also advances several goals of the Arlington's Affordable Housing Master Plan by creating housing opportunities in a transit-rich area with excellent jobs to services and communities. As Arlington continues to face affordable housing challenges, projects such as Alexon Courthouse demonstrate how thoughtful redevelopment can help expand housing supply while also generating important affordable housing benefits for current and future residents. Alexon reflects the Arlington's commitment to addressing our housing shortage and expanding affordable housing opportunities for working families, seniors, and future generations. I respectfully urge the board to approve the Alexon project and continue supporting housing initiatives that help keep Arlington an inclusive and economically diverse community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ventrone. Really appreciate your comments as well as Ms. Steinberger's. And we will now turn to our public speakers. Mr. Kushner.
Certainly. Our first public speaker on this item is Mr. Bernie Byrne, followed by Stuart Stein.
Mr. Byrne.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. The main sections of the building are not biophilic. They do not have green roofs or green walls. No plants hang from the roof or ledges or climb from the ground. So this could have been a lot better project in terms of the main buildings. However, the plant palettes in this project's April 17th, 2026 revised conceptual landscape plan do conform to the County Board's 2016 Monarch Pledge and the county's 2023 Forestry and Natural Resources Plan. The plant palettes contain about 40 species of shrubs, trees, and perennials. All plants are native to Arlington and vicinity, with only 2 minor exceptions. There are no cultivars, except for a pair that will improve pollination and fruit production, because one has male flowers and the other has female flowers. The palettes contain common milkweed, which is the only plant on which monarch butterflies prefer to lay eggs, that thrives in Arlington's natural areas. The applicant has made many changes to the plant palettes in response to my suggestions during the site plan review process. The revised palettes can serve as examples that other applicants can follow, as can the county's own landscape architects. For this, I thank the applicant and its landscape architect, Land Design of Alexandria. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. We will stay close because we'll have discussion. But thank you very much. Our next speaker.
Yes, moment, please. Our next speaker is Stuart Stein, followed by David Friedman.
Mr. Stein.
Yes, I'm here representing the Radnor-Fort Myers Heights Civic Association. First of all, we fully support the Odyssey condominium and their concerns, including traffic safety, parking, pickup, drop-off, and bonus height. So we appreciate the addition of considerable number of on-site affordable units in our community. While we would always hope for an even deeper degree of affordability, adding units below 60 AMI and a longer term of affordability well beyond the 30 years, we are still very pleased with the addition of many affordable units where none currently exist. We very strongly support the on-site options, and we are very impressed with the applicant's willingness and desire to put the units on site. We are very happy to support the conversion to much-needed residential use. We greatly appreciate the improvement to the cross-block connection and open space. In all of these plans, we always have a deep concern for tree canopy and hope that all opportunities will be taken to preserve and expand the overall tree canopy and green space. We also appreciate and support the respect given to the mall access view corridor and appreciate working with National Capital Planning Commission. We want to encourage all art contributions to be on site with the obvious opportunities presented by the enhanced mid-block connection rather than a contribution to a fund. I appreciate there being at least a 0.65 parking ratio, but support the Odyssey's concerns for parking. There is also another large project being considered nearby on 15th Street that will only add to the parking demand in the area. Once again, we fully support the Odyssey and their concerns for safety, traffic, parking, drop-off, and pickups, and additional height and its impact on their building. These concerns were expressed in a letter and email from Rob Alcott, president of the Odyssey Condominium Association, that was submitted to the county and the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Next speaker.
And our next and final speaker on this item is Mr. David Friedman.
Mr. Friedman, you're welcome. This works as a commission representative. You also could join at the table, and we would have had you earlier, but clearly all systems are not perfectly working in my own approach. So welcome look forward to hearing your comments.
Well, thank you. And this one's not on you. I'm a newbie. This is the first time I've testified before you all, and I'm relatively new to C2E2. In fact, I wanted to start off by thanking the chair, vice chair, and the entire members of the board for the opportunity to serve Arlington and the community in my role as a member of the Arlington's Climate Change, Energy, and Environment Commission. As a bit of context for what I'm going to share, I do want to flag that reducing energy use and improving our environment will only benefit Arlingtonians through healthier air, lower healthcare costs, and lower climate mitigation costs. And quite importantly, all of those steps will also help enhance affordable housing, because housing is not affordable when people cannot afford to pay for their energy bills. In fact, people are spending about $1 billion every single day for their home energy needs in America, and more than 1/3 of people in America are foregoing necessities in order to pay their utility bills. So this is a critical energy and environmental issue, but it is also a critical pocketbook and affordability issue. Our commission we develop a detailed scorecard for all projects that are assessed, and we evaluate and weigh a variety of energy and environmental issues. This project received a score of 55 out of 100, indicating the project, as disclosed, meets our minimum criteria. In terms of a big picture bottom line, as the project meets our minimum and includes no fatal flaws, there are no objections to the project moving forward. I will note, however, there are many significant missing opportunities to simultaneously lower the costs for residents and reduce energy consumption and pollution. On the other hand, the project's location, density, and as you've been hearing a little bit about some, at least of the biophilia plans, appear to be real assets. I would also note within the process that there were significant information gaps in and questions resulting from the developer's submission that, to my knowledge at least, were not filled despite requests submitted to the public record and at the SPRC meeting that I attended. In terms of the standout features of the project, as I mentioned, overall, the location and size of the property will lead to lower pollution and energy use. It is just a few blocks from the courthouse metro, so residents will not have significant barriers to taking multiple forms of transit, walking and biking, and I would hope those parking spots never end up getting fully filled because people are taking advantage of those opportunities. It also provides nearly 400 living units within a relatively small footprint, so residential energy demand will be significantly lower than shorter buildings, townhomes, and single-family homes. In terms of the missing opportunities, the project does not avail itself of significant opportunities to ensure the housing is more affordable and lower polluting through many readily available energy efficiency measures that will save residents money and use energy use. The project will also have high methane gas consumption as a result of water heating that could have instead been electric. This leads to added unnecessary construction expenses to incorporate methane gas lines, higher pollution, and cost risks due to the cost of gas for water heating. The project is also behind the Arlington market in providing charging for electric vehicles. Planned electric vehicle charging spots are fewer than the more than 4% of vehicles registered in Arlington that are already electric. The plan is going to include 4%, but more than 4% of vehicles registered here are electric. And the parking that can be converted to electric vehicles is insufficient to address the fact that electric vehicles already represent on the order of 20% of new vehicle sales in our region. The project also has very few units with more than 2 bedrooms. On a per-person basis, units with more bedrooms typically require less energy and lead to less pollution. More units with more bedrooms would also create opportunities for more families to live in an area with excellent transit, biking, and walking access. Regarding the process, as I mentioned, to my knowledge, the developer has not provided added information that was requested. This does make it difficult to fully evaluate the project and to give it any added credit it may deserve. It also deprives the public of information that may be critical to them and their ability to weigh in on those issues. Thank you very much for this opportunity and for your service to our county.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. Welcome to the commission. And for those at home, if you're pining to speak for more than 5 minutes, join a commission and represent us on a Saturday, and you can get that right. Let's see. I think I've got it correct. The conversation is now with the board.
That is correct.
All right. So I will turn to Ms. Coffey for a motion, because I think that the focus really, we've heard positivity all the way around, including Ms. Steinberger referring to, and Mr. Byrne referring to positive overall impression of the project. There are concerns, Mr. Stein, you mentioned the Odyssey, and those concerns will be part of questions that will come afterwards, but I'd like to get a motion on the floor. Ms. Coffey.
Great. I move that the county board, A, adopt the ordinance attached to the board report dated June 5, 2026, namely to amend site plan number 173 to permit redevelopment of the site with a new building containing up to 394 dwelling units located at 2000 15th Street North, with modifications of zoning ordinance requirements, including additional density, increased building height, reduced parking requirements, density exclusions, and other modifications as necessary to achieve the proposed development, subject to the conditions of the ordinance, and B, adopt the ordinance attached to the board report dated June 5, 2026, namely to vacate an easement for public street and utility purposes on property owned by PBE Companies LLC and Cedar Hills LLC, known as 2000 15th Street North, Arlington, Virginia, with conditions. I further move that the county board authorize the real estate bureau chief to execute on behalf of the county board the deed of vacation and reservation of easements and all other documents or deeds necessary to effectuate the ordinance, subject to the approval as to form of such deed of vacation and other documents or deeds by the county attorney.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Coffey, and seconded by Mr. Spain. Now we will turn to questions, and I'll look for lights. I do see, so I'll start. It seems to me, and in the letter, I'll take responsibility. There was a 12-hour period yesterday where I hadn't forwarded. Really appreciate the Odyssey. It's not a legal conflict. I did used to live at the Odyssey, and I don't know the author of the letter to us, but there were sort of 2 or 3 different issues that and maybe 1 or 2 more that were primarily raised, and focusing most on 15th Street, which you touched on in the presentation. I can say from my own, and your gym is my gym, or was my gym when I actually worked out, but that's a separate story. It's a great gym, and there's a process there. But the mid-block crossings, I do think is actually an addition, because an improvement, because I just didn't feel like it was clear as much there. Can you speak a little bit, Mr. Pfeiffer or team, to the traffic on 15th Street and this ongoing issue of food delivery, which I know has separately been raised by you, Mr. Ventrone, but maybe first generally to that issue, and then we can have additional sub-questions related mostly to that traffic.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just start off by sort of framing this, and then I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Sergio Viricochea, DES. So we did look at, we heard this issue from the Odyssey and others at SPRC, that there's a concern about the existing conditions on 15th Street and the demand for, pickup and drop off and how that would work at the site. We did identify that there are those 3 on-site spaces that will be designated for short-term parking that can accommodate this use, and we're confident that this building can be served appropriately by those 3 spaces. But again, I'll turn it over to Sergio to elaborate.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Chair. In terms of traffic, the applicant did submit a MMTA, multimodal traffic transportation analysis, of which staff reviewed and did not flag any concerns there. Mostly because this development is close to metro, rail, and transit, this will generate more of person trips rather than private vehicle trips in any way. So a lot of the intersections that were studied did not show any concerns or operations to actually go to like a failure. And then in terms of 15th Street and on-street parking there, the on-street parking will continue to be provided on both sides of 15th Street. And there actually is an increase of one space on 15th Street adjacent to this site. And that's due to the removal of the driveway that currently exists on 15th Street. And then moving to the pickup and drop-off concerns, this was heard through the SPRC process. And the applicant has made modifications to, initially there was 2 pickup and drop-off spaces flagged for North Taft Street. There is now 3 that are being proposed and will be evaluated through the civil engineering process as it's reviewed. And we do believe that providing them on North Taft Street is more adequate than having them on the main corridor on 15th Street. Providing it on a side street does provide for less disruptions. And I would just reiterate that 15th Street will continue to have its on-street parking. And if there's any issues or concerns related to curbside management today or in the future, a resident can use Arlington's report a problem to request some type of analysis or staff review for the curb space management and its regulations currently on site, or what will be there in the future, and staff will review the needs for the community and assess from there.
Thank you very much. I see other lights. I hope that we'll get to, I'll go ahead and yield and see if colleagues get to any questions I might have. Flexible as to who goes first. This time, why don't we go to Ms. Coffey and then Mr. Spain?
Great.
Unless you need a minute, we can.
No. I'm just thinking of how exactly to ask this question, as it is more of a point than a question. We saw in staff's presentation that parking ratio could go down as low as, I think, 0.33 at this site, and yet the applicant is not proposing 0.33. And I am wondering if the applicant could share what the thought process was of actually choosing to go above what the parking minimum is required to be.
Sure. Great question, board member. This was partly based on the applicant's other properties throughout the region and the use that they've found and what they find to be a proper market level. And I think you've seen this in some other site plans that have come forward, right, where the proposed ratio is a little bit different than that of the minimum potential recommendation based on the residential parking working group. I don't know if there's any other color you want to add to that based on your experience.
No, I would just echo that as well. And also in the case of this site, due to the grade change, there's building area that goes into the hill where the garage is. So that has to be filled in regardless. So in this case, along with it being a market rate kind of actual ratio, it actually makes sense from just how the building lays out into the site.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're telling me is, even if the parking minimums were non-existent, you would not choose to provide zero parking. Yeah, I think as we continue policy discussions and think about future endeavors, there's a lot of fear around low parking minimums or no parking minimums, and that results in no parking being provided. And I think we continue to discuss, because we know the Ballston-Roslyn corridor in particular, I think parking spaces are running us about $80,000 per space to construct. And so it's not always the parking minimums that drive what is built. And frankly, you all know your market better than we do, and are not going to go below what residents really need. And so that's more of an illustrative point. I will say that I did not realize that there is a preliminary additional site plan right on the other side of that block. I don't think that has any influence on how we proceed here, but I wonder if the applicant is thinking about anything in terms of construction coordination, because it is a tight set of blocks there, and that's quite a lot of disruption. So I just encourage you to make sure that you're aware and conscious of that. I don't know how long, since this is only preliminary, it will take for this to move through the process, although I see, Mr. Whitmore, that you're listed as the attorney on that one as well, so you might have better knowledge. But I think otherwise, I'm happy to see a site plan that really does meet all of our core goals in this area, from transportation to housing to environmental goals. And I think, we always want to see more of these where very few people sign up to come talk to us. Usually means that a lot of it has gotten worked out before you get to here. And so we appreciate that, appreciate the Planning Commission and everyone on the SPRC who, it sounds like you all did make pretty sizable changes throughout the process to meet the feedback. And so we appreciate your cooperation as well.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. Mr. Spain.
One, I've had opportunity to see a couple of projects being here over the past 19 months, and I must say, it's June, and looking at the timeline, you're talking about 6 months, right? Since really you went out and had some online engagement in December 2025, pretty fast. And to what our vice chair said, just let me say, commend everyone on working diligently to figure out how to get to yes and make this happen, even though not everyone will agree, right? But you did what you had to do, especially in a location that's underutilized. So I appreciate that. I think I will go to the county manager on this one, and maybe to the staff. There's been a lot of concerns, and I've heard this in some of the reports that have come up, even from the Planning Commission, about CAF units versus contribution versus, look, we have our sector plan, we have affordable housing units throughout, how we take the $5 million and perhaps get more bang for the buck at least. Can we talk a little bit about CAF units in and around the area, Mr. Manager? I know we had a brief conversation yesterday, but more so for the public. Thank you.
Sure, and I'm going to ask Matt to pull up the slides that he has on that. Thanks. Matt, why don't you go ahead?
Here we go. Yep.
Yeah, thank you for this question. So, so we do look at, when it comes to the question of fulfilling additional density through the zoning ordinance provisions for affordable housing, we do look at, on a case-by-case basis, whether on-site CAFs or cash for affordable housing investment fund contributions are, preferable at each property. I think it depends on a variety of factors. As you can see here, we looked at this, and there are a number of both committed affordable buildings and existing market rate affordable buildings and buildings that have market rate affordable units within them. And in this case, given the factors involving the ability to leverage many more off-site units, we felt that a cash contribution was more appropriate. However, the developer, of course, indicated to us that they were interested in potentially looking at on-site affordable units. So what we wanted to do was have the optionality and the condition that would allow them to make that call when they get closer to permitting.
Thank you. And you briefed this out just a short time ago in your briefing, but I think is critically important to kind of pause for a second for folks to really digest what's going on. I would just say that I'm also very hyper-focused on, when we have new development and we're going to put committed affordable housing perhaps in locations, ideally, especially in new development, what I'm really sensitive to is all those amenities that come with a particular area, understanding we may have more surrounding ones, but perhaps are termed out or getting close to termed out. But I'm also very mindful of intentionality. And if we don't lose sight of indirectly segregating neighborhoods by not putting committed affordable housings intentionally in certain areas. So to the applicant, what I would ask is, and again, as we think about on-site CAFs and an option, right, can you talk at this moment about what those options may look like if you decide to put calves there? What, single, studios, bedroom, what kind of mix are we looking at? Potentially understanding you have not made the decision, but I'm just curious if you have any thoughts or analysis on that.
Sure, and it's a great question. And we actually did have pretty extensive discussions with staff about that, and that it would be, I believe it's 4 2s and 5 1s of the 9. So a majority of family-sized units. But it's also something, I guess I should also point out that this is always a requirement, but I think it bears repeating that any of those units all have the same level of finishes, same access to amenities that all the market rate units within the building do. There's no differentiation in the quality versus the market rate units. So, as Mr. Pfeiffer said, that's a discussion we've had. That's a discussion we're going to have as we move toward building permits, and obviously that the county is going to continue to have of the best way to leverage the affordable housing resources that you all have access to.
Thank you. And lastly, Mr. Chair, because I will have no additional questions to include no closeout questions. I think, again, when we think about housing broadly and our levels of intentionality, we have to be guarded against, again, that we don't intentionally segregate, luxury areas within our community. Because we lose sight, even when the AHIF fund, for example, is really not where it needs to be, but moving people out indirectly could cause more harm than good when we think about an inclusive community. So with that being said, I again want to commend the folks on working with our planning commission and the community on this. It looks like we've did some really great work, and I look forward to approving this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Ms. Cunningham.
I feel like Mr. Carantonis has a couple of deep questions. Do you want to go first, and I'll do cleanup? Okay. Then I'll start with the C2E2 question. So first of all, congratulations on getting a 55%. We don't have great inflation in C2E2, which is great. So that is great. But I'm curious if you have any response to some of the questions that Mr. Friedman raised. And I think that the Parks Commission also raised a couple about bringing bird-friendly glass up higher, dark sky lighting, electrification, water heating. If you just want to give a little reaction to some of those, or I can run you through all of them.
Sure. I'll try to remember all of them, but you may have to remind me.
Yeah,
so
that's fine.
I'll go in the order I can remember them. So for the bird-friendly materials, we are going to be doing between 8 and 36 feet, which is, I think, the typical requirement there. I'd also point out that in this case, we don't have retail, and a lot of times that retail is the kind of glass that can really be the most harmful and the most potential for bird strikes. So we think that 8 to 36 feet, which is the typical standard, is sufficient here.
And I think the Parks Commission point was it's the new standard, it's 50 in the newest USGBC. We're using the old one here. So just to flag that, I think that if there were possibility, I think that would be of interest.
Okay. And I only managed to remember one of them, so would you mind telling me the other questions? Sorry, the electrification. So we do, and we've got our sustainability consultant on the line to answer these with a lot more detail than I'll be able to provide, but we do have full electrification with the exception of that hot water. So we're proud of that. I mean, we think that's real progress coming forward with all cooking and all those elements being electrified. We're not at a point in terms of the electrification that it makes a ton of economic sense to do the electric water heating. However, this technology is advancing rapidly, and we're several years out from being done, and we're obviously going to continue to evaluate that as we go through the construction process. And it may be that becomes something that makes sense by the time we get there. Okay, now I'm out of the
dark sky friendly lighting.
I'm going to ask Christine to speak to that, if you would.
In terms of dark sky, we're still working through the design in terms of the lighting, but we always have that in the back of our mind when we're thinking about lighting selection and making sure that proper shielding is incorporated in any kind of light fixtures that we select.
So is there any problem with committing to dark sky standards?
It may be part, and I don't know if staff can answer this question, there's not DPR folks. I think that may be part of the standard. We're required to meet the county standards as the landscape plan advances. And I should point out that the landscape plan that gets submitted and approved along with this is a conceptual landscape plan, and there are several iterations and meetings with staff, submissions to get to what ends up being a final landscape plan. And that's ultimately going to have to meet all of the county standards. What I don't know is if that dark sky is already incorporated into the county standards or not.
It's actually part of the Green Building Incentive Program condition. It's light pollution reduction, and we have a standard condition on it. The 90% of exterior fixtures have to meet dark sky lighting standards.
Great. Okay, and then the EV spots, I think, was another one. Why only 4%? And do you have EV ready beyond that?
Sure, and I always start this conversation with, the reminding folks that Dominion has a say in all of this, right, of our transformer size and electrical capacity. It's not completely within the control of the developer. That being said, yes, we've committed to the 4% EV, which is kind of our floor. But that being said, the developer has its own internal mandates related to EV spaces, and I know is going to be looking for opportunities to increase that as we go through the development process and the design process.
Okay, great. And then last one on the environmental side, the tree canopy permeability, it's sort of in plan, it looks like it used to be 1/2 open space and now is less than that. Can you just share? I couldn't find the numbers looking through it really quickly, but what is the tree canopy and the permeability here?
Give me 1 second. Let me pull up the.
We can come back to that if you need a little time sometimes. I couldn't find it for sure.
Okay, so we are required 10% tree canopy, so for about 5,000 square feet of tree canopy, and we're actually providing 25%, so 12,500 square feet of tree canopy.
And what is it now? Do you know?
Now?
Uh-huh.
I don't think I have that number, the current.
Okay.
It's a little bit higher.
It's a little higher, I think, yeah. Okay, I think I have a couple more, but I'll pass to Mr. Carantonis. He may hit most of them.
Mr. Carantonis.
I have rather a short question, or two short questions. One is about, one is a design and how the building communicates or intersects with 15th and Taft, et cetera. So there is the entrance part. I appreciate that. This is a good work on this entrance. But there is no other mixed-use activation along both sides, right?
You mean specifically on 15th Street?
15th or Taft.
Okay. Well, it's a great question, board member. We had a lot of discussion at SPRC about this, and there were some questions of, hey, why don't you put some retail there on 15th Street?
Well, it doesn't have to be retail.
It doesn't have to be retail.
Childcare can be a gym like it is today.
That's right. And so we, starting at that point, right, of the question about retail, the retail action plan doesn't recommend any retail here. And then there isn't much facing retail close by to help kind of continue that activation. So we took that and we said, okay, let's look at this and let's see how we can, as you said, provide some activity and create some opportunity for something to be happening along 15th Street. So that is how we made the changes related to the bike space, the bike storage space, and some of the co-working space within the residential building to front some of that on 15th Street so that, yeah, we don't have a traditional retail space, but the activation and the activity that is happening, we have placed it there on 15th Street where we can have eyes on the street and things happening to not be a dead street despite the lack of any retail.
Yes, thank you for that. And I really appreciate the thought of, retail-like uses are not retail uses, but co-working is one of these retail-like uses. And one of the points that I have for my closing remarks is to think harder about creating space and opportunity for these, especially new buildings. The second thing is on the affordable housing on the implementation slide, the affordable housing contribution, as a follow-up to Mr. Spain's line of question. So for the base density, there is a choice of $1.95 million or 18 on-site units or 26 off-site nearby units or 35 further away units. Can you elaborate a little bit of that so that we, just for the general edification, how different the yield on affordable housing is between additional density and base density?
Sure, yeah, thank you for that question. So the base, so that you can kind of think about it as two different buckets that are enabled by two different zoning ordinance mechanisms. So within the base density for all site plan projects that are above 1.0 FAR, there is a formula for not earning, but there is a formula for providing affordable housing that gives developers an option between a cash contribution, as you said, on-site units, off-site nearby, or off-site outside of the vicinity. That section of the zoning ordinance is very formulaic. The developer just has to decide which option they're going to do and meet it. And that section, I believe, is copy and pasted from the Code of Virginia. So it is very formulaic. It is very pro forma, and the developer just gets to decide what they want to do. Now, for the other bucket, for the affordable housing contribution to earn additional density, that is a negotiation between the county manager and the developer to fulfill that. And in this case, that contribution, again, that we worked out with the developer is a condition that would require either a $5 million contribution to the Affordable Housing Investment Fund or 9 on-site committed affordable units.
Thank you. I would take this slide just as an exhibit A to our legislators to show them how far apart the two, how distant the realities of these two things, the same building, same delivery, and how distant the yield here is in terms of a prime community need. So I'm done, Mr. Chair. I have only closing remarks for when we.
Thank you, Mr. Carantonis. Ms. Cunningham, you stand between us and lunch. I mean, sorry.
I know I do. I know I do. But there were some good questions raised by the Odyssey condos. I just want to make sure we've given them full visibility, even though you're a long ago resident. I think the semicircular cutout for the driveway was one question that was raised. There is a driveway now. We are very much in the middle of a journey on pickup and drop off and curb management and enforcement, and it's not going that well. So tell us about your thoughts on that and what's the fallback plan if it doesn't go well.
Sure. So where we started and what we start with all these is our scoping meetings and our transportation meetings with the staff and getting a sense of, okay, what are the transportation recommendations here? What do you all want to see? And obviously have our own input in terms of what we think is going to be the best operation for us. For this one, and I don't want to speak for staff, but we got the feedback that the proposal, right, the kind of square proposal that I pointed out is essentially what they want to see in terms of the traffic pattern and nothing with respect to a portico share or a loop road or anything like that. In terms of our own preferences and operations, we feel strongly that with the consolidated pedestrian entrance there on the corner and the consolidated vehicular entrances on the southeast side of the site, along with pickup drop-off spaces and the existing and maintained spaces along 15th Street, that there's going to be more than adequate space for pickup drop-off. If things don't work, right, I mean, there is always the chance, right, that folks don't follow the law, and we see that sometimes. We are going to, and we've talked about it in the public hearings, we are obviously going to do everything we can to educate our residents to say, hey, if somebody's coming to get you or if you're ordering something, you need to tell them to come around the corner, or you need to tell them to use the spots there and not park in the middle of 15th Street. I think that was the concern, was that folks would park in the middle of 15th Street. We think that between our own enforcement, the county's traffic enforcement, and hopefully signage and preventative measures, that's not going to be an issue. Obviously, if it is, sometimes the police have to tow folks, sometimes people come, it does happen. But we're going to do everything we can to prevent that from happening, and we think the design that we've proposed is going to help mitigate that pretty significantly.
Did you want to add anything? It looked like you might be jumping in. I guess one question is whether, do you ever allow kind of a 15-minute free parking underneath, or sort of having some visitor parking in the garage, especially as we have heat islands created? That's actually a feature.
Yeah. It's one we've... No, it's all right. We have done that in prior projects. We just evaluate the parking for each project on a project-by-project basis as we get closer to opening. Okay. And we bring our property management staff in and understand kind of how, in this case, we use third-party property management who works extensively across Arlington. And so they provide a lot of input on how we're actually going to manage that as we get closer to opening.
Got it. Okay, so that's potentially a backstop too if we get a little better enforcement, need to have more space. And then just very quickly, Odyssey had questions about their privately owned public space and potentially a lot more use of it, potentially more dogs' uses of it. How are you accommodating that? Are you planning to pitch in with cleanup days? Are there dog waste stations on your site? Can you just say a little bit to that? I think that's a legitimate question.
Yeah, we have a pretty, we talked a lot about the public part of the open space, but what we didn't talk a ton about is there is a pretty extensive private courtyard in the front of our building that we think is going to be sufficient for those types of dog waste and other related activities. So we're confident that we've got enough there that folks aren't going to be traveling over to the Odyssey to be using their facilities.
Okay, great. And then last one is the public art. I think we heard from Ray Pham about preference of having the public art there. Is that possible, probable, neither?
So we have the standard site plan condition on public art that the developer has agreed to, and that gives the optionality for them to decide post-approval whether they want to do on-site public art or provide $75,000 cash contribution. So that I would turn to Mr. Whitmore to see what, if any, there is thinking on that subject.
Well, you can't put art in a box, right? It's a little tougher sometimes to delineate that as we're still kind of pushing and pulling areas in the outdoor space, and we're subject to plan review from county staff, and that does sometimes make some real changes to these outdoor areas. So while there are some open space areas that potentially could be public art locations, it's very hard to commit and say, yes, absolutely, we're going to put that there when the pushing and pulling and moves to the landscape plan really are still in flux. And if we commit to that and then there's a change that makes art impossible or impractical, or we go to the artist and they say, I could never put something here, this doesn't work, then we're kind of in a pickle. Having the optionality allows us, as these plans mature and finalize, to make the best decision for the overall final design of the building.
Great, but you've heard from the community, so you'll take it under consideration.
Absolutely.
And last thing is for our staff, as we go into the negotiation, I think we're increasingly experiencing concerns about pedestrian access during construction, and given the width of the areas and the density of this one, I think that will be a significant concern. So if we can make sure we're not compromising pedestrians as we're working through that, that would be great. Thank you for the extra.
No, thank you. And you actually covered a couple of questions that I had because I'm former neighbors. Let me see if I understand correctly. One of the specific requests of the Odyssey, and this is either it's for the team, it might be for Mr. Video Share, Mr. Sergio, I believe. It concerns, we could put prominent no parking signage on 15th Street if we see a pickup and drop off challenge. That's within our tools, right? As we do curbside management.
Our parking staff can review that type of regulation.
Okay. And then there was mention in the letter of the bike lane on the south side. And I think you said that up 15th Street North. And I'm trying to picture it. There is a bike lane that will be added and there will still be parking. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes. So currently on both sides of 15th Street, there's an existing bike lane. And then as you move further east, still on this block of the site, there's a parking curb extension on the north side that restricts any parking on the north side or south side of 15th Street. And that space, since there's no parking on either side and there's a reduced cross-section, has now been dedicated to providing a little bit more protection to the existing bike lane there. So as Mr. Pfeiffer said, there's a buffered area, but also additionally, the applicant has proposed some low-level concrete barriers within the buffered area to inhibit any vehicles from parking in that area, since there is no parking spaces due to the cross-section. And these low-level concrete barriers are similar to what you might see at Wilson Boulevard today by Four Courts and those restaurants.
Great. Thank you. With that, I have no further comments. The question, I think not seeing any lights, but now seeing one, now seeing another. I will make my closing remarks like this. More housing, reducing our office vacancy rate, economic growth and development. All three, this is 3.2%. That's all I have on closing. Mr. Spain.
I will echo those same remarks in closing, and I will just state that for me, I think kudos again to the Planning Commission and the Housing Commission and the applicant and C2E2 for your work. What I'm watching is the efficiency of how we move projects. And I think this is a testament to something you've heard before that is ideally suited for us to kind of emulate in the future. Because it happened most efficiently, effectively, and at this pace of need. People hear me say that a lot, right? But I'm also, as we think about redevelopment and how we maximize our public benefits, especially with affordable housing and the broader community considerations, I will be watching all of these, right? Because it is important to so many folks that not only we deliver housing near transit and convert our offices, but we do this in a way that's really inclusive and we leave no one behind. Congratulations to all. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I look forward to approving this.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Mr. Carantonis.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. I fully agree with you, Mr. Chair, and with Mr. Spain on the merits of this project. But I wanted to use the opportunity, I find it always very helpful when E2C2 comes through. We call it a scoring card, but actually this is a methodic, consistent way to evaluate a building proposal. So if I could find a lot of issues with the scoring card, but I find zero issue, and I find it extremely helpful that we have a methodic way to go through that. So I would try to emulate that because I'm so jealous of the methodical E2C2 on the design parts of the building, because building is where people live, and we, at the end, we're creating what we approve here is what will be the home of people for a long, long time. So first of all, the first question for me is whether the building creates and repairs or enhances the connections within an existing neighborhood. And I believe that the project scores very high on this. The super block perviousness, there's the addition of housing, instead of a commercial building. I'm not so offended by the higher car or parking ratio, but I think of that as a potential for future ancillary parking, capacity in that block. The second question is whether the building represents a design that's bold and interesting and new. To the degree of the fact that the building replaces a commercial building that, mind you, this commercial building was built in 1985. This is how short this was being. As an environmentalist, I would be hugely offended by that. We had an obsolete design, not only an obsolete use, an obsolete design in just 40 years. This needs to be put in frame and for our thinking forward. But I would say, if you look at recent deliveries here and things that we approved, like the Wendy here, just in the corner of Clarendon and Wilson, this is a great example of the value and the reward that a little bit more expressive design can bring you. It is subjective, but I think it needs to be said that well-designed buildings are actually not only better in perception, but they're also better in value and yield over time. The other question is whether you are concentrating premium materials that create points of shared enjoyment for this community, and I believe that the corner design that you brought is appreciated. It's not particularly novel, but it's there, and there is care to deliver that. As a whole, the building, in my opinion, is a welcome juxtaposition to the detention facility that's next door to it, and also a good addition to the neighboring, to the overall feel of 15th Street and Taft. So I would like it to stand out more, but it's fine with me on this. The other question is what I asked, whether it energizes the streetscape and we have some sort of mixed use. I think that you make a serious effort to do that. You also deliver another point that's important to me, which is to have a positive tone and a bright, engaging entryway, which you do. The treatment of the entrance is great. I think that, I always think about November darkness and how you perceive your building. You arrive to your home, and also how others who are passers-by or just walk their dog or ride their bicycles perceive the building. And I think that this is still a solid and considerably better delivery than what is there today, which is a wall and a very dark and unappealing streetscape. The other question is whether the building is creating a space where compatible uses are put together. They add convenience and they support social encounters. The courtyard and the streetscape that you deliver are sufficient to me for this. I can imagine a better delivery, but you already did a lot of work on the passageway behind, so this covers that for me. I don't know much, and we haven't talked about here the interior design of the buildings and how air and light is made available to the residents. However, I appreciate the balconies. I even appreciate the serrated design of the side of the building. However, for future projects, there are many ways to deliver this. Also, with a lot of mitigation of solar, gain, etc. I really encourage people to think about these alternatives and to be bold enough to propose them. On the art. Art is used to invigorate common spaces, not only public art. The building itself should be. We don't know too much about that. I believe that this will come when you do your interior design and the design of. But I really encourage you to compensate a little bit for the relative, conventional design of the textures and the colors of the rest of the building to compensate inside with something that's brighter and better. And I know that you have these opportunities. And finally, the question for me is whether the building reflects the character of the community and gives opportunities to showcase that. And I believe that the building does what it is supposed to do. I have to say one thing. I believe that we are at a point where corridor communities who live at the corridor, they are not just warehoused on the corridors. They live in the corridor. They live very meaningful, important, productive, vibrant lives. The building should reflect that and should honor that. And you will see that that the reward from this will be immensely important. Congratulations, it's a good building. It's not a bad building. I think it could be a lot more better, but that's how I want to approach that. We are working on curb management principles. This is an important thing that we need to think about. I think the concerns about that are important to me, but they're of general policy interest. And finally, there is a history of difficult construction, difficult for the neighbors construction in a relatively constrained space. I will be looking very carefully about how best to be helpful here to make it as painless as possible for the neighbors during the 2 years of construction there. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concluding point perhaps provides an opportunity for, that Mr. Stein alluded to reach out to make sure that we are, there's good partnership. With that, and that's for the Odyssey folks, for the neighbors all around, some of the concerns raised, certainly we will be responsive. If you have concerns, raise them and we'll be responsive. as I hope will the applicant. So the question is on Ms. Coffey's motion, seconded by Mr. Spain. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions. Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations to our community as well as to the applicant. So now, Mr. Kushner, do we have any other items to come before the board today?
There are no further items.
Okay, thanks, everyone. The board is recessed until we reconvene here on Wednesday, June 17th, 2026 at 3 p.m. Look forward to seeing you then.